They're not gonna be able to see me, are they?
No,
No?
no, because they close, they don't,
So are they going to be able to speak? That's it?
yeah. We don't have a camera.
What do you mean? We don't have a camera on the screen.
Why is it saying you're unverified? Or maybe because they can't see you. Because he's unverified too. Not everybody gets on the screen though.
All right.
We're gonna bring up the preamble. It will bring the May 23rd, 2024 Landmarks Commission meeting to order. In compliance with notification requirements of Ohio's open meeting law and section 101021 of the codified ordinances of Cleveland, Ohio, 1976, notice of this meeting has been publicly posted. All boards and commissions under the purview of the City Planning Department conducts its meetings according to Robert's Rules of Order. Actions during the meeting will be taken by roll call vote. Recusal from any case due to a conflict of interest should be stated for the record prior to the beginning of the presentation. In order to ensure that everyone participating in the meeting has an opportunity to be heard, virtual attendees will use the raised hand feature before asking a question or making a comment. The raised hand feature can be found in the participants panel on the desktop and mobile version and activated by clicking the hand icon. Please wait for the chair or facilitator to recognize you and be sure to select unmute and announce yourself before you speak. When finished speaking, please lower your hand by clicking the raised hand icon again and mute your microphone. Call-in users can unmute by using *6. All meeting activity is being recorded via the WebEx platform. These proceedings are also being live streamed via YouTube. All requests to speak on a particular matter submitted through proper channels have been considered. Communication with members of this body must follow proper channels for consideration. Any comments received at the stated deadline are collected by Landmark staff and disseminated to the commission members prior to any scheduled meeting.
All right, to go through the meeting rules and procedures. The chair will call each agenda item, and then each applicant will be invited to proceed through their presentation. Each presentation should be completed prior to questions and comments from the commission in order to facilitate a smooth presentation. Once the presentation is concluded, the chair will ask Landmark staff to summarize design review committee recommendations and any public comments received. The deadline for public comment is noon on the Tuesday prior to any regularly scheduled Cleveland Landmarks Commission meeting. Any received comments are distributed to commission members prior to the meeting. Staff will also identify any members of the public present and scheduled to speak. Public comment is allowed at the discretion of the chair, and any individual providing comment is permitted 2 minutes to speak the agenda item in which they have an interest. The chair will then request a recommendation from staff. The commission will then begin deliberations and project review. Any commission member except the chair may make a motion at any point after an agenda item has been called.
Thank you, Dan. So with that, I will call the May 23rd, 2024 Landmarks Commission meeting to order. Dan, please call the roll.
All right, Ms. Anderson?
Here.
Mr. Dreyer? Mr. Dillick?
Here.
Councilmember Gray?
Here.
Director Wong? Mr. Lozier?
Here.
Mr. Sandbury? Mr. Trasick?
Here.
Dr. Williams?
Here.
Ms. Trapp? And Mr. Strickland.
Here.
All right, Mr. Chairman, we have a quorum. I'd also like to note that we have Landmark staff, Jessica Beam, Carl Brenges, myself in attendance, as well as Kevin Roberts, our representative from the law.
All right, thank you very much, Dan. We'll start with the certificates of appropriateness. Case number 24-040, East Boulevard Historic District, 1154 East 99th Street renovation. Would the applicant please introduce themselves and tell us about your project?
Morning.
Morning.
Khalid Hawthorne with Amigos Foundation. We've been working with City Architecture on our historic renovations in the East Boulevard and Ashbury Way Park historic districts. We've been doing this work for many years and look forward to presenting this project to you, which is on East 99th Street in Glenville community. This project is located at the corner of Westchester and East 99th. As you see, it's in close proximity to the cultural gardens. This is a corner site, which is always tricky with historic preservation, especially of the magnitude that we take on projects. And a lot of these houses are endangered for the most part, and we're trying to save the historic district so that there is something to be to preserve. Right. So for this particular property, we're going to take off all the aluminum siding here. Really haven't gotten into what's underneath there yet, but that's something that we wanted to take on. And we'll restore original siding in there, and come back with with painted, restore the siding painted. For the rear, we probably will still use vinyl or vinyl on the rear and other sides that aren't street facing. There's some examples of other houses around in this community. Lots of very large houses in this area. Many 5-6 bedroom houses. Some large duplexes that are like four bedrooms each side. Beautiful, the strong bones within the community. So this is the general footprint of the house, how it sits on the lot. As you see, there's a shared driveway, and no garage, which we're going to try to figure something out there. But the box to your left It's, that was actually an addition that was added, a screened-in porch that was added, after the house was built. Right now, there are 3 doorways. We're gonna reduce that down to 1. But that's all the interior, footprint. So, we used to take these down to the studs, replace all systems, air conditioning, or HVAC, plumbing, electrical. So, basically a new house with strong bones. That's, we provide additional modern amenities and layouts to the houses. There's not a lot of the thing, unfortunately, a lot of the interior is usually painted over or deteriorated to the point we have to we try to keep as much original as possible. What we're here for today, this is how we're looking to renovate the structure, new roof, as I mentioned before, wood, aluminum clad, wood clad windows on the fronts. We're trying to keep the same mutton styles as what was there before. And right now, the porch, we're calling for aluminum clad windows on the porch as well. There are a lot of windows. And that's an area where we're looking for a little bit of relief there, especially with all the other work that we're doing here. As you see, yeah, this is a better view of the existing additions of the porch. This is, as you see, it's 1/1 windows, stacked side by side. We're going to try to space those out a little bit and add some additional detailing that working with our architect, she identified as something that fits more with what the architectural standard of the neighborhood than the original addition. And this is that's the west elevation. Oh, yeah, it's on. Yeah. And the north side, which is the entrance from the driveway. We'll be restoring the porch, railings, and things of that nature. Any questions regarding?
We'll hold the questions.
Oh, okay.
So we finish the presentation. So this is your presentation?
Yeah.
Very well. We have the local design committee report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This project was reviewed by the Greater Northeast Historic Design Review Advisory Committee on May 7th. They saw 2 other projects being done by Amigos and City Architecture. The other 2 proved no issues there. This one, they discussed that side porch, which is on that corner facing Westchester. Because it was a later enclosure, originally it was proposed to have similar windows with similar mutton patterns as the house. And the design review committee said that's a later enclosure, and so having the windows on the porch be 1/1 would be appropriate just due to the later age of that, which was edited here. Read the window material. They thought that would be a better determination by Landmarks Commission rather than them. But they did approve everything else and are looking forward to seeing it come alive again.
Thanks, Jessica. And we have a staff recommendation.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Did some research on the building. There is a permit application from November of 1904. So this was completed in 05. And it was built as a 2-family dwelling. A garage was added in 1920 to the property. You can see here from the Sanborn map that it did have that porch on the south side. It had an address of 9821 Westchester Avenue, which was the residence of Andrew W. Frank. There is a 1967 building permit for aluminum siding for a 2-family dwelling. I think that's the time when it was enclosed, because it seems like the aluminum that's on the outside there of that porch is when it was enclosed, and that's when the windows. So, and because later in 1985, there were building permits pulled for a one-family dwelling. So sometime, probably 67, early 70s, it was changed from a two-family to a one-family. But there was no specific permit for the enclosure of the porch. The corner, this is a corner unit, so it is a visible primary facade. We would note that the glass block mortar should be gray rather than white. That's a standard that we usually have throughout our historic to minimize the impact from that. The windows can be 1/1 since they are later more appropriate. And we would also consider composite or fiberglass for that. Please, no gray side. Maybe a different color than the body being gray that was presented up there. Don't know what, but that's our recommendation on that. Thank you.
Very much. With that, I'll open it up for comments and questions from the commission.
I can
No.
start.
So,
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I want to say just first and foremost, this is how I think we hope all historic restorations, the process goes. We're trying to reuse as much existing material and historic material as possible. Being very respectful of the architecture of the building, being respectful of the, window arrangements and all of that. I think overall I don't have a ton of comments. I think it was all really well presented. I personally don't have an issue with the porch windows being a composite material versus the aluminum clad wood. I guess one question that I have, so you mentioned that during the presentation that you'll look at restoring and repainting the front facade, and then you mentioned potentially vinyl on the other three sides.
No, so it's two sides that are facing street.
Gotcha.
It's a corner unit.
Yep.
So both of those sides would be restored for sure.
Okay.
The other two sides, we may have to go with vinyl.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay. And then the windows on the street facing facades, those are both scheduled to be aluminum clad wood, except with the exception of the porch.
Yes.
Okay. And then the rear and the other side, are those also aluminum clad wood, or are those
Vinyl.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha. I have no other comments. Thank you.
Ms. Anderson?
Thank you, Mr. Strickland. I've seen Amico's work in the past, and you do terrific work. Nice job on some of these properties, and they're challenging because they're big, and there's only so much you can expect to get out of them when you resell them. The front door, I know that's being replaced.
I believe so. I'm not quite sure what's there now.
Something under some vines.
You can't really see it there. Yeah, I really have. It's one of those houses where I probably don't pay attention much. I think there's so much to deal with. Yeah, but if we usually try to go back with something of similar style to what's there, or of similar style in the neighborhood.
Okay, I
Yeah.
just wanted to make sure it wasn't some metal door.
Oh no, we use solid wood doors. Yeah, they cost.
Half the budget.
Right.
And there's glass block windows in the basement.
Yes.
Are
yeah.
they there currently?
I believe so. And for the most part, that's we usually use glass block in the basement windows. Yeah.
The reason I'm asking is Amico's did the renovation of the houses on East 105th between Wade Park and Ashbury, and I remember there was restriction on them not using the glass block because of the historic district.
Okay.
And I guess I would need to defer the staff regarding that.
Yeah, through the chair, if I recall, the said, yeah, the East 105th homes, those were funded through the Department of Community Development using CDBG dollars. And so one of the requirements in the Section 106 process was that any glass block be limited to like the sides and rear, and then those ones are rather visible. So I think, you know, they pushed back against even glass block on the sides because they were so visible. The typical practice is, you know, you try and avoid the glass block on the front of the house, but sides and rear are okay, which is a similar standard to what we use. If the original windows are gone here, then, you know, it's the basement windows always seem like a losing battle. You know what I mean? They get replaced at some point, and then, you know, there's no real going back, because it's. I mean, I think it makes sense, and it's not too visually obtrusive. Hopefully, there'll be some landscaping.
Yeah,
That sort
that's
of
what I
thing.
figured, the
So,
landscaping will steer that.
Yeah. So they're not an ideal, but it's reasonable to us given the scale of the rehab. and that
People
sort of
like them for a variety of reasons.
Yes. Yeah. And just to, I guess, to jump back to the door issue too, staff is happy to work out, you know, those final details and that sort of thing. Like if, you know, they can get a better image of what the door currently looks like in its condition, we can help make sure that a replacement matches that pretty close, as close as reasonable. Or if you find that the historic door is in good enough shape to reuse, you know, we can work out those details.
Thank you, Mr. Strickland. Wanted to review, is there a horizontal detail? I guess it's the north and south, the end elevations. If we can look at the existing photos of those two. It looks like there's a horizontal soffit and small rooflet detail. I wonder if that was, I can't quite tell from the photos if that's the case, because the elevations don't show that going all the way across. And if that's an existing piece, I'd like to see that incorporated into the design.
So like a band.
Yeah, it's like a band, I think. And that's a big, it looks less colonial and more craftsman, for lack of a better detail. Like that is an essential piece of both of those elevations, I think.
Does
So
the opposite elevation show what's there? The opposite.
Yeah, do we have a picture of the driveway side?
Oh.
Yeah, you
It's on the
almost
side, it's a
expect to
bump out.
see,
Yeah,
like shake up in that gable.
yeah. It does, I would,
Just like a maybe 6-inch overhang, it looks like.
knowing the age of the house, I would strongly suspect that that gable was shingle and the shingles curved down to that little soffit. So I think some exploration to confirm that, and if so, that should be shingle. I guess along with that, I don't know that I would want to require it, but I would strongly recommend. That's very visible because the driveway, the space between those two houses, because of the corner lot is so wide. I think this elevation is going to be very visible, especially when all the landscaping is cut back and improved. And I think it's so visible, and that sort of three-dimensional quality of the house, really like to see that if the wood siding's in good shape underneath, and especially if we're going to have shingles in the gable, I'd like to see that facade in wood as well. It's a little unusual, and I know it's not technically a corner lot, but that view feels very important to me for the three-dimensionality of the house. So other than that, I wanted to confirm the window color. Is it white, or I can't quite tell from the drawings, and I didn't see the.
Trim is white, but
We're pretty sure it's gonna be white.
Okay. Yeah, and I guess maybe it's just the fineness of the rendering lines for the mullions or Munsons. And I think I saw in the design review recommendations, the exterior applied mullions. I'd like to have staff review of the profiles for that. And also, even though it's the back of the house, at least as I'm suggesting, the trim detail transitions from the wood trim. If you're going to have vinyl on one facade or wood on the other, that detail is real important. We really don't like to see exposed J-beads. Not that you would do that, but those kind of corner details, I think landmark staff should review those with some adjuster.
You the trim around the corner.
Yeah, exactly.
Just like
Exactly.
J.
And I just want to commend Famicos for taking these on. You know, really, this is such an important thing, and it's a lot to ask for anybody to do. But the fact that you're saving these and making them, you know, keeping them wonderful homes and giving them new life is just a great thing. So thank you.
Can I ask for a clarification with your comments? Are any of them requirements as opposed to recommendations?
Thank you, Mr. Strickland. I don't know that we can require that north facade to be wood. So I would, if I can, I would like to make that a requirement. I don't know that the cost, the relative cost is going to change it, and it's that
It
transition.
really is subject to investigation.
Right,
To see
correct.
what's there.
Right, I really, yeah, so I guess that's the other thing, and again, this can all be staff review, but investigate if the materiality and the detailing of the tables and review with landmark staff.
And we'd be willing to work with staff on that.
Yeah.
That's not, I don't think that's so big as far, yeah.
Yeah.
If we're going through the process of ripping off the aluminum, which isn't, it is not in terrible condition, but, you know, it's not preferred, so.
Okay.
Thank you for doing that. Otherwise, I'm in support of all of my fellow commissioners' comments. This is great.
Hopefully the aluminum's preserved siding.
Right.
So,
Okay.
All right. Any other comments? I have a question for Carl. What was your comment regarding the color choice?
I don't know, gray just doesn't, the body doesn't feel right for this. And everything is being painted gray, black, and even though it's a Sherwin-Williams, it's probably a historic color. For this, I don't know if gray is the proper choice, and I would like to see some other body choices for the building.
And is the applicant open to considering other colors?
Thought it was attractive, but I'm open. We've done a lot of different color schemes on houses, and you know, trying not to, we want to break the monotony a little bit, but then stay within the realms, yeah, and things that are attractive, that are marketable to the people. So we're open to discussing that with staff as well.
Okay. Well, it
Yeah.
sounds like you've got a few items to discuss with staff. So
Right.
Just put that on the list.
Right.
Okay.
staff is happy to review all final details, including, colors, the door, window colors, Muntin, profiles, and
The
sort of
detail
after-
transition from the wood to the.
exactly.
fire.
Yeah,
Right.
and I think, probably once there's some exploratory demo done, we'll have a better idea of what the siding condition is. I guess I would recommend in a motion, maybe giving staff the flexibility to work with them on that, is it the west elevation? The driveway side, if the condition is very poor, giving staff the ability to make that evaluation and say, yeah, it's bad enough that vinyl makes sense here, or yeah, you should be able to save this,
All right, very good. Well, again, this is just a wonderful project, and they bringing back this, wonderful residence to really create an anchor in the community that hopefully inspires others to do similar projects. Would be wonderful. Okay, with that, I will entertain any motion.
I will make the motion. Absolutely.
Choice.
I make a motion to approve as presented with consideration for the materiality at the gables and consideration for existing material at is that the north elevation? The driveway side?
Yes.
Consideration for that. And that the work with Landmark staff to finalize how both the materiality and the detailing is executed.
Just one quick point of clarification, is the working with staff on the final details still consideration or a requirement?
It's a requirement. Staff review of all of this is a requirement. Thank you, Secretary.
So that's an all-encompassing requirement to review all those details that we have discussed. Okay, any further discussion on the motion? Oh, no, wait a second.
I'll second.
All right, any further discussion?
Yes. Should we put more information on what details need to be discussed with staff? Should we, or color,
We can expand the list.
expand?
All right, so
Yeah, I guess.
you're like, if you're willing to.
Oh, I'm
adjust,
very, absolutely, I'm open to.
So that we're gonna add some details that the staff with the applicant will review. The material for the doors, colors of the windows, the color for the body of the house, the transition, the mutton profiles, and the transition from the wood siding to the vinyl. Get them all?
That's what I had, yeah.
Okay. Yes.
Just one more point of consideration. So about the windows on the porch. If we're okay with those being a composite
I think
versus.
they're proposing fine.
Right, so the question is, are we good with vinyl, or do we want that to be one step up, which is the composite? Versus
I
being
don't have a
required?
problem in this particular application, given the extent of the work that's being proposed.
Yeah, I'm fine with it too, just wanted to make the point of.
That'll be approved as part of the vote. That's proposed.
Just for my clarification, are you seconding the proposed changes?
Yes.
Okay, all right.
All right.
That's all right.
Any further discussion on the motion? Seeing none, please call the vote.
All right. Ms. Anderson,
Yes.
Mr. Dulick,
Yes.
Councilmember Gray,
Yes.
Mr. Lozier,
Yes.
Mr. Sambry,
Yes.
Mr. Trasick,
Yes.
Dr. Williams,
Yes.
and Mr. Strickland.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, the motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Looking forward to seeing your completed project. We'll move on to second item on the agenda is case number 24041, East Boulevard Historic District, 867 East Boulevard roof replacement. Would the applicant please introduce themselves and tell us about your project?
I'm not sure that the applicant for this one is here, so I might recommend moving it to the end of the agenda and calling them later.
All right, we'll move item number 2 to the end of the agenda. Move to item number 3, case number 24042, Clifton West Boulevard Historic District, 3592 West Boulevard, window and siding installation. Would the applicant tell us about your project and introduce yourselves and tell us about your project?
Good morning, committee. This is Jose Semity with Shore Roof Construction Company. We're if you go to the next page, I don't know who's controlling it. Oh, okay. I'm sorry. We're replacing the windows with the vinyl replacement window, a good quality window, a Vinyl Max. We're going with the tan color to keep the color to match the bricks. We're keeping all the lead glass. Yeah, I know. All we're replacing is like the double hung windows, which are 14 windows, which is the 2 front ones on the top. If you see on the front, and then the next one it has the front part of it right there. If you go to the next one, I guess I'll show you the left side, right side. Okay, we're replacing those there. She has like 4 different type of windows, uh, um, different styles, different, fixture. And on one of them, you see there's even a glass block on there. So we're basically going with, the vinyl replacement windows, color tan. We're keeping the grids in order to keep, the historical kind of look on it, which it has it right now. And they approved the siding, which we're doing the siding to match the garage. The only concern is the vinyl, the replacement windows that we're looking on replacing. If you go to the next one, you'll see that's the opposite side. See how they're kind of different windows. These are here almost like vinyl windows, but we're just replacing those. So part of the house has already some vinyl windows with the grids and everything on there. So we're just basically now all the leaded ones like you see to the left, we're keeping those. If you go to the next one, yeah. All those, yeah, see, they're gonna have the grids. It's gonna be a tan color to match the house and the roof and the bricks. Go to the next one, I think, too. Oh, that gives you of the window that we're putting in, basically, Vinyl Max. It's a welded window, good quality window. It's not a cheap one. There's well, that's the siding part of it. The garage has a color. It's like a frosted greenish color with the beige. We're doing the house exactly the same way the garage is. Which, okay, it shows you the garage right there. And if you look at some of the windows, the house has like 4 different type of windows. Some of them are crank outs, some are glass blocks, some are vinyl. I know the existing committee requested wood windows, which we do have the costs on those, which are outrageous. I mean, I presented to the homeowner, but you're looking at almost $1,700 a window by the time we have to do any trim work outside and everything else. I actually live in West Boulevard, been there for 7 years. And, I'm into the historical aspect of it. So we try to keep it as historical as possible. But I mean, Laura, the homeowner there, and a couple owners on the streets, we're really into our house, and we try to keep it as nice as possible compared to a lot of the houses around the area. And so we just probably need approval to pretty much install these windows in. I think the homeowner's in line too. Her name is Laura. It's Laura. Where am I? Okay.
Does that conclude your presentation?
Yes,
All right, thank you.
unless the homeowner wants to say something.
With
Because,
the owner applicant,
yeah,
like
applicant,
to have a
yeah,
comment?
Laura.
Yeah, I'm here. Tony was saying that, yeah, we're keeping all the leaded glass windows and I'm trying to keep the look of the house with all the
Mhm.
grills and everything. I mean, I love the historic aspect. The problem is these windows are not functional and they're not safe. So, it's been 106 years they've been here. And at this point, I need windows that are energy efficient and that are safe for children and animals that, bump up against them. And right now they rattle when trucks drive down the street. So just trying to do my best to keep this house in good shape.
All right,
So that's all I
we
want.
appreciate that. All right, thank you very much. We have the Design Review Committee report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is reviewed by the Historic West Cleveland Design Review Advisory Committee on May 15th. There's a lot of discussion around the windows, as you would expect, noting that the problems that the homeowner has noted, noting that both not functional for the home, but also the storms are not functional. They looked at, I guess there is existing vinyl siding on the house right now. So the vinyl siding being proposed is to replace that.
Placing it kind of.
Yeah, so the motion was to recommend the approval of the siding replacement with a suggestion of trim reveal by the windows and denial of the proposed windows with a recommendation for preservation of windows from new storms or aluminum clad windows on front to match the types and configurations.
Okay. Thank you, Carl. We have a staff recommendation.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So to start, I'd like to clarify the windows that are not proposed for replacement, because there are leaded glass windows, a glass block window on the house. It's our understanding that those would not be removed, but have new storms added in a matching color to match the new proposed tan windows. The decorative windows include a transom window above the front picture window, leaded glass by the side door and the chimney, and then windows that are on a decorative bump out on the first floor, also the glass block window on the side of the house. So those would not be replaced, but have a new storm system added to match the new windows proposed. It's staff opinion that the variety of windows on the home is consistent with the arts and crafts bungalows in the area. There are a lot of arts and crafts bungalows in the West Boulevard neighborhood, not so much the rest of the city. And so if the windows have failed, we recommend they're replicated with appropriate windows matching the configuration and function of those windows that can keep the casement windows as casement windows, double hung windows as double hung windows, just to continue that feel. If not, at least keep the same appearance with muttons that match that previous appearance of function. And the home should preferably have exterior applied grids as well on those windows. And it is on a corner. It's the corner of Lynette and West Boulevard. So it does have those two street facing facades. And so that is kind of a consideration for that one side of the house where, generally we are slightly more lenient for the window materials on the sides and the rear. This one is on that corner, so it does have those additional side windows. And read the siding. It's understanding that the home has had vinyl siding on it for more than a decade at least, that we can see. And so we do suggest and always prefer a higher quality material for siding on the street facing facades, but understand the existing condition of vinyl on the home. And so it's replacing the existing condition. So in that respect, we would be in a similar mind to the design review committee on the siding.
Jessica? With that, I'll open it up for commission comments and questions. All right, I'll start with my comments. So it's the recommendation of the Landmark staff that the windows be replaced in kind in terms of functionality. So casements be replaced with casements and double hungs be replaced with double hungs, matching grid patterns. And so I'd like the applicant to respond to that recommendation.
Yes, we could do that. I think that's what we're doing that exactly. We're gonna replace everything existing. There's just gonna be a vinyl one.
All right, so you're not replacing casement windows with double hung windows?
No, I don't think, Laura, is there any casing windows on there? I'm sorry.
I'm not sure what you mean. I don't know that term, so I
Oh,
don't
the
know.
casing, let me, I'm sorry. What's
The crank out windows.
Yeah, I know the casements, I know. I'm just looking at the tower right now. Double hung.
That one on the left looks like a
Those
casement.
are casement windows.
No,
The
those-
flanking windows and casement and
Those
that's.
don't
Yes.
open. No, those
Well-
windows on that you see on the bottom left picture right now, those don't open.
Yeah, those not are they're not crankouts. They're just solid.
Those are all fixed?
Yes,
That's correct.
yeah.
Install fixed sash.
I was wondering that because I didn't see either. You don't have crankouts at all.
No,
No.
Okay, so those would be replaced in the same configuration that exists presently?
that's correct.
Okay.
Yep. And the only thing you see on the top, it has leaded glass, that's staying. Any leaded glass on there is staying.
Does that answer your question? Yes.
I think staff's opinion, we think that confirmed with exactly which windows are being replaced.
Mr. Lotion.
Yeah, so thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, I think it's a little bit difficult to understand from the presentation, as it stands at the moment, to understand, one, the cataloging of all the windows, and two, what the intended replacement for each of those windows are. I think what Ms. Beam was referring to is that there's a smaller window on the second floor that's to the left of the chimney that appears not to be double hung. And just understanding further clarification on that window in particular as well. It looks like that's a white painted wood window that has a different sort of grill pattern than the rest of the windows. So I think just understanding, and it doesn't appear to be a leaded glass window. So I think understanding what that
Well,
is.
that window right there is gonna be a double hung with the grids or the buttons on top, just like the other windows to match. That's what I was saying. That's like 4 different type of windows, just like you see the top gable, that's totally different window. The one to the right, totally different window. The one in the center, totally different window. It's a glass block. So I mean, the whole concept on the whole side, we're gonna make it all look universal, all double hung with the grids, case real nice. I think it's gonna look a lot better than what it looks right now, what we're presenting. Because it's like it says, looking at that photo, you got 4 different type of windows. A glass block, that's kind of weird. And then to the left, you said that window doesn't even open. It's sealed shut. And the top gable is different. And the one to the right is just basically a wood double hung. So they would be all.
Staff expressed an opinion that this type of architecture, this bungalow type house is unique in this neighborhood, and featuring several different types of windows is a feature of that bungalow style. So can you explain to the commission what those actual windows are presently, and if we could possibly replace them in kind?
So you want us to replace each one of them different, just like how they are right now?
Except for the glass block. I'm sure,
Okay.
that's not original.
But okay, so they're not original to the house. So
No.
the one that you see that's brown on the right side of the second floor,
Yeah,
that's actually a metal window that's probably from the 50s or 60s.
Yeah.
And there's windows all over the place that they're not original. So there's no way to know what was there originally. I'm just trying to make sure I try to keep the look of the house. And in doing that, I just kind of have to guess, and I'm trying to make it more uniform, more visually appealing than what is there now, which is just a hodgepodge of a mess of the last,
Yes.
75 years of someone else doing things willy-nilly.
So as part of your presentation, you talked about the functionality of the existing windows and indicated that they were original to the house and were no longer functioning properly. So now we're getting different information.
Okay, so the ones on the first floor are the ones that have never been, those are the ones that are original that don't function. So someone has been working apparently, second floor in the attic, which is that little thing way at the top. But the ones on the first floor where kids can climb, people can break into them very easily, or kids can fall out of them from inside the house. Those are the ones that are rotted, don't open, they don't function, they leak like a sieve. Those, those I definitely need replaced because, I need to be able to keep the cool air in in the summer and the warm air in the winter. On the front of the house there, the second floor, those are also original. And, it's hard to tell you where all these windows came from, but yeah, so there are quite a few that are original. Leaded glass windows are still here, and I'm assuming those are original. But again, second floor in the attic, there's
They're
a
not original.
bunch
Yeah.
of things that have happened. I don't know. I can't tell you. I've been here 20 years and I've been trying to work on this house for 20 years. And I'm finally getting around to the point where the windows need to be done.
Yeah.
Well, that's wonderful that you've had this commitment to this house for that number of years. And we're looking forward to supporting you in your efforts to continue to upgrade your residents. But the presentation has made it difficult for us to understand specifically the scope of your project and the differentiation between the original windows being replaced versus other previously replaced windows that you're intending to upgrade. So
So it's the problem is the presentation?
I personally am a little confused.
I think it's a lack of clarity on, which specific windows are being replaced with which specific window type. Staff did note that there are a few different types of windows here, and then the presentation, you're saying they're all gonna be, double hung.
Yeah.
And it looks like not all the windows are double hung, so I think if you could provide additional
Yeah,
information and kind of a
but
survey of each window and then indicating what that window is going to be replaced with, that would be helpful. And then staff could ensure that if there are any casements, they're replaced with casements, the picture windows remain picture windows, and double hungs are replaced with appropriate double hungs.
But there is no casement windows, and each of the windows on top of the second floor are all different windows that were not original from the house.
Okay, I think
From the get-go, so
some clearer photos of that might
so
help.
somebody went in there and messed with them already, so we're just trying to make it look good, not messy like it is right now. I just I don't know.
Just when we look at when we look at the photos, there are at least two instances on the first or on the second floor that clearly appeared to be, paired casement windows. So, not necessarily the crankouts, but the ones that there's a latch and they just kind of swing open,
Yeah.
swing out. So we want to
Okay,
make
that's-
sure that condition is retained in a replacement.
Just one window like that's on there. Just
Okay, getting us that kind of detail, that's what we're asking for. Like a survey of the existing windows with photos that are kind of close enough that we can see the windows clearly, and then indicating what you're proposing to replace each one with. And an expectation that, any non-standard double hung windows be replaced with what is currently there, not counting the glass block.
okay.
Are we able to make a motion?
I just, I mean, I don't understand. I mean, I just, okay, that's fine. I just, I mean, it's a shame. It's crazy. Wow.
Do you have additional comment?
Oh, me?
Yeah, the applicant.
Oh,
right?
no, I'm just, I don't know. I live right on West Boulevard. I've been there for 10 years. And I seen the houses there and I know I've done 30 houses in there roofing wise, a lot of roofing, a lot of siding. I've met with boards on clay tiles that we had even with the councilman, the existing councilman that lived there. We did his house. We had to meet with that. And we've been there. I've been in that neighborhood a while. I've seen the people how they take care of the house. We all take care of our house there. And there's houses behind there, other houses there that are trashed and everything else. And
Yeah,
it just
understood.
kind of kills me that it's like, you know, here's a customer and a lot of customers that want to keep everything going. My house is, I keep it historical and I'll do whatever it has to do. And we already proved the windows. There's different people,
Okay,
whoever
we
went in there and
understand.
did stuff. Yeah, so
Okay.
it just, I don't know, just
All right, we get it.
boggle me. Yeah.
So
what do they need?
the problem is that at this point, based on your presentation, we don't
Okay.
really understand the scope of the project. So you need
Okay.
to provide better information with regard to existing conditions and what you propose to do, because there's so many different window types. We
Okay.
really need to catalog the different window conditions, whether they're original or previously replaced,
Each window.
and in what the different conditions will be replaced by, right? So I don't think it's that much of an ask. And
No,
it's really
that's
to
no problem.
improve
We'll
the
walk-
situation for the homeowner.
Okay,
All right.
we could do that. We'll
Any-
do each window, get a picture, propose each window, what we're gonna put on each window, 14 of them, and then we'll submit that.
That would be extremely helpful.
Okay.
Ms. Anderson?
Mr. Chair, I don't know if there's any historical photos available. Sometimes you can find them in the library and whatnot. It may give you some clarification on what was there prior to the replacement of the windows, 50 years ago, whenever they did that. On
Mhm.
some of the newer windows. So that might help give you some direction, and it would, be something that we would be very open to trying to work with you on replacing those in time.
Secretary of Interior standards, the way I understand them, is that if conditions have been changed, the applicant is open to replacing windows in kind with what's there.
Yes, yeah, typically there's the option, if you have good documentation, like a historic photo, and go back to, what was historically there, that's typically our preferred method,
Right.
but,
Right.
That could help them with doing what they want.
Absolutely. So can staff assist in that?
yeah, staff is happy to.
Looking
to
for historical.
try and help find some historic photos. We can check the usual spots. And if we don't have one, I think just having that catalog of existing window condition and those replacements would be helpful in determining, what's going where. I think has there been much discussion about the materiality?
I personally, given this applicant's commitment to this residence for so long and the conditions that she's trying to rectify, I don't have a problem with it. With the quality of the material that is being proposed. Other commission members want to comment?
I think I would like to see non-vinyl window on the front. That would be 2 windows. The rest
Two
of them-
upper windows?
The 2 upper windows. I don't think the rest of them are as problematic. Even though it is on a corner lot, I think just the front 2 upper windows would be my recommendation. And with my understanding, I think that those were the only 2 windows on the front that are getting replaced.
That picture on the left, where does that exist?
It looks like it's under the porch, but is that a window that's getting replaced?
Yeah, they're all being replaced.
I think the upper portion of those windows have leaded glass. So that band, I think, is being talked about being retained, but the lower windows
Okay.
are looking to be replaced. I don't know how ultimately that works or looks, but
I guess I would rescind my comment until we have more information.
Okay. And the applicant would like to add further comment?
Yeah, those windows on the porch, the three lower windows under the leaded glass, I would like to replace. So the leaded glass portion is just going to get a storm window in front of it so that it matches the windows that are replaced below it. So it'll all look like a cohesive unit, just like it does now.
Yeah.
But that way I can preserve the leaded glass part of the window and protect it from damage, because I do have, birds that fly into the window and stuff, so.
Okay, understood. Thank you for that clarification. Any further discussion or comments?
No, I'm just gonna work on what you guys need, like that each of the windows, will take, closer photos of them on each one of
Okay.
them and recommend on which one we're gonna replace each one with double hung or whichever one we're gonna replace it with. I could put that together.
With that understanding, that with the applicant's permission, I would propose that we move to table this until the additional information is available and reschedule a hearing for this applicant. Does the owner agree with tabling the project at this time?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to table.
We have a motion to table. Do we have a second?
Second.
Mr. Sandberg. Any further discussion? Dan, please call.
Mr. Chair, if I may,
Mr. Trassick.
there's been a lot of talk from the applicant about cataloging the windows and what they're going to replace the windows with. And I just think it's important that the applicant understand as well, at least from my understanding of what the discussion has been, that it's equally important to investigate which of these windows are original and which ones are not, and to work with staff to best find out if they're not original, what an original window would look like or would have looked like at that point in time. I think I hear from the discussion it's equally important to find out which ones are original, which ones are not original, and if not original, what an original window might have looked like, if we can investigate that and to work with staff with that.
Right.
I heard that being
Yeah,
equally as important as cataloging.
Thanks, Ray. And I think that staff is going to be part of that investigation, trying to look for an historical record that may exist of this house to help understand what the original Windows configuration was. So thank you. All right, so we have a motion, and a second. Any further discussion on the motion? Seeing none, Dan, please call the roll.
Ms. Anderson,
Yes.
Mr. Doolittle,
Yes.
Director Wong,
Yes.
Mr. Lozier,
Yes.
Mr. Sandbury,
Yes.
Mr. Trassick,
Yes.
Dr. Williams,
Yes.
and Mr. Strickland.
Yes.
Mr. Chair, the motion
All right.
passes unanimously.
All right. Thank you. Thank you to the applicant. Forward to receiving your additional information and helping this project move forward.
Will do.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
So we'll move on to the fourth item under certificates of appropriateness, case number 24-42. Mall Historic District, the Western Cleveland, 777 St. Clair Avenue mural installation. Would the applicant please introduce themselves?
Hi, everyone. Thank you for your time. My name is Amanda Sanchioni. I'm a project manager for Ground Level Project Management. We are a subsidiary of HEI Hotels. HEI Hotels owns and operates the Westin Cleveland. We are currently doing renovations of the Westin Cleveland lobby and restaurant. The restaurant was formerly is decommissioned and is going to be a Masa and Agave. Masa and Agave is going to be an authentic Mexican tacos and tequila restaurant. So we are proposing doing an exterior mural with the artist Aaron Petez, who's on the call today. The mural is going to be painted in authentic Mexican folk art style. It is not an ad for the restaurant itself, but more so a node. And I have Aaron on the call today. I'll just say that my team has worked to interview several artists, and we felt Aaron's style was the most authentic based on what we were trying to achieve here. So I'll hand it over to Aaron to introduce himself and kind of give a brief of the meaning behind the mural piece.
Hi guys, thank you for having me on. My name is Aaron Petz. I am award-winning artist. I focus on interior and exterior large-scale paintings and murals, as well as some sculpture work. The concept for this particular piece is to paint the likeness of Princess Maywir, who's the god of agave, and ultimately in Azteca culture, they believed that the pulpe, or the agave, would actually give you, it was almost like the elixir of life. So we're basically taking a snapshot of her calling from the heavens the elixir of life. We're going to basically, another point, this is how we install it. We're basically going to be painting directly onto the substrate itself here at the Westin, just over that awning that you see on the left-hand side or underneath the Westin. We'll have additional pictures that we can walk through, but if you have any questions, please feel free to ask.
Yep, and then just a quick...
I was just going to say, we'll have you go through your presentation, and then we'll ask our questions at the end.
Great. And then just a few comments. These photos were taken from Google Earth. Currently, that urban farmer sign is no longer there. We will, in a few weeks, probably present a new concept for that sign itself. And then underneath the Westin sign, there at the very bottom of that awning, there's uplights that are being repaired currently that will be illuminating the mural. If you could go to the next slide, please. This is a zoomed in version of the mural itself. It'll be 48 feet by 31.5 feet. And this is Aaron's concept. And then here are a few renderings of how it'll be perceived in the landmarks district. And that concludes our presentation. Open for any comments.
All right, thank you very much. All right, are you going to speak before the design review? Okay.
Switch it. Thank you, Mr. Chair. So this project was reviewed by the Greater Downtown Historic Design Review on May 15th. There was a lot of discussion, and they had one motion that failed. That was to approve the concept of artistic integrity, but with not adhering directly to the wall, but instead being applied to it with the consideration of lighting, and that did not pass. And so they did another motion that passed unanimously. That was to put added lighting for lighting to the mural, and then to have an option to install as a vinyl tension application, or painted as presented directly onto the wall with commitment from the owner to return the building back to its present condition at the time that the mural would need to be removed. And that was because there was a lot of discussion on that part of the building was redone in about 2012, 2014. And so with the the application method of scuffing and then painting on top of it, those panels can't be painted over again, and they would need to be fully replaced. And so there was a lot of discussion on the design review committee on making sure that it would actually be replaced at the time that that mural would need to be. So they're very supportive of the mural itself. Just the application process caused a lot of discussion.
Thanks, Jessica. I am in support of it being painted directly onto the substrate for the artistic integrity of this piece. They did also get support from Councilman Kerry McCormick. Also, we got a letter of permission from HEI's ownership, their technician, president of technical service for the hotel. I think that, and I did check to make sure that this mural was not branding or logo or anything related directly to the restaurant, and it's purely art, and it is. I'm in support of getting this approved. I think it has great impact on this portion of downtown, having a large scale mural that's vibrant, full of color. And as Jessica said, and they said in design review, if there was a reason to take it down, the panels could be replaced by the hotel ownership. And support.
Just staff recommendation.
I would just add that the project was reviewed by city planning as well as public art, and was approved on May 17th with recommendation to allow the painting to go edge to edge.
Allow it to go edge to
Yeah.
from city plan. Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Since this is a newer building, we do have some leeway, but we do still have to follow Secretary of the Interior standards for reversibility. So, you know, and we're in agreement with the design review committee about if it needs to be replaced, then it be replaced, not painted over. There should be a maintenance plan in place. See here, this is how it's changed since originally. Much discussion about whether or not to have the mural reach to the edges of the metal or not. It's kind of like if it were encompassing the entire wall, it'd be one thing, but because there is a border at the bottom and there's a border at the top, it almost feels like it should have at least some sort of border on the sides. But going back to this, and I don't know how much you're going to experience this straight on. And because those white borders on the sides are actually on the front and on the back and not actually on the side. So it's in the interpretation of how you view this. So there's still some, should it go all the way to the, should it not go? We're kind of either way, but it definitely needs to have the relief on the bottom so that there's that clear band around, and it does need to have that space from the western. So I think the main thing is, do you pull it a foot off the sides? Do you leave it? Depends on how you're observing this.
And I want to say on the applicant's behalf, they did make the adjustment up on the building when I made that recommendation to them. And so my other recommendation with the framing on the sides, city planning commission said they liked the edge to edge. So my thought is you guys have to say, so I'm just gonna leave it there.
All right.
Mr. Chair, or take your comments in?
Yes.
Okay, so as a representative from the planning commission, they were in full support. I agree with the application of painting and the reversal of new material coming back. I think maybe it was Tara who expressed that, or the artist too, that the brush stroke is part of the authenticity of the look of the painting. I agree with the edge to edge. I think it will look really nice in that scale, and shrinking it down may lessen the impact. And then I just feel that it's a colorful cultural representation downtown that is exciting and is great. So I'm in full support of that.
Thank you, Director. Further comments from the commission?
Barry? I think I don't have a problem with the edge to edge or the border or anything like that. but the applicant or the application of the paint on the panels, I wonder if we should recommend some kind of attic stock of additional panels in the event that they aren't manufactured if and when this comes down at some point. I know that would be a huge cost to the hotel. It's just a thought.
I can speak a little bit to our communication with the manufacturer of these panels. So we are currently, our general contractor of this building is Maru's Brothers. They've done all the previous renovations on this project. So they've looped us into the manufacturer. We've talked to them about the process they've given us. The original paint spec is bone white that was painted here. Because this is a Marriott brand, Marriott has very rigid, I would say, like, renovation cycle requirements. So every 7 years, we need to maintain the exterior. So I believe if and when the mural gets worn, we will, have to adhere to these brand standards to replace the panels. We have the manufacturer. We've been in communication with the manufacturer, talking to them about the process. So they said that people have painted on these before. So I think that, as I'm representing ownership, we have full intentions of maintaining this building.
Great, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Any further comments?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Less concerned about the panels, other than surface prep really has to be in alignment with the paint manufacturer specifications, because the important thing is the paint sticking. But a question through the chair to the applicant, is this a rain screen system with open joints, or is there actually sealant between the panels? I don't think there is, but if there is, that would be the other compatibility to check, because the sealant would need, if it's there, would need to be replaced long before the panels would ever be touched. So it's more of a question to confirm that that's the case.
Yeah, there's not sealant. I have the original specifications too, and I'm happy to send those over if needed.
Perfect, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So just for, I think, as clarification purposes, we talk about this, in the event that this is a temporary installation, but is the intent that this thing will remain in perpetuity? And we're only talking about the event that things it may be replaced or taken down in the future? Okay. That's, I think, helpful for me to understand. If this was intended, even if there was an intention that this would come down in the future, I would say that it would make more sense if it was something that was applied to the surface, not directly painted. But seeing as that's not the case, I'm okay with that being directly painted. I do share a similar concern with my colleague about if this does come down and new panels are installed to replace it, that even new panels that are installed today will not match exactly what's on there because of the 10+ years of weathering. So we may want to think about, or you may want to think about, replacing the entirety of that surface versus just the area where the mural is today. And just keep that in mind as things continue to progress. The one question I do have is, so there's a panelization of that facade. What's the relationship between the bottom of the mural and the top of the mural in relation to the panelization? Are we keeping it to the panelization of the facade, or does it have some alignment with those joints? And if not, is there the opportunity to have some alignment with those joints so that it feels like it's intentional with the architecture of that facade?
Right, I believe it is aligned with the with the very ending of one of the joints. I'm wondering if there's a better photo that I can zoom in on. Erin, you can go ahead.
It is, yes, sorry. So it basically, it's kind of like a baffle on the bottom. So we'll be making a line for visual alignment, and then it ends on the top joint itself, which is ultimately our end line.
We did explore that in our early conversations before this got to any of the design reviews.
No, thank you. I appreciate the presentation, and looking forward to hear any other commentary from my colleagues.
Other question, comments? I think this is just a wonderful mural, and I agree with the planning commission's recommendation that it cover the entire expanse of that elevation. There's no architectural details that will be interfered with this mural. So having it go edge to edge, I think is totally appropriate for this installation. Any further comments? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to approve the mural as presented, edge to edge, with the application to paint provision that the property owner will replace the facade should the mural need to be removed.
Thank you, George Wong. We have a motion. We have a second.
Question. Are you all limiting?
Wait, we have to have a second first, please. Just procedurally, we have.
I'll second.
And then we'll have further discussion on the motion.
You have a second? I'll second.
Do you all have any intention to UV coat the mural at this meeting?
Did you hear the question?
Sorry, I did not hear the question.
Are you all planning to UV coat the mural after it's finished?
Are you gonna recoat the mural after?
UV
coat. UV coat.
Oh, UV coat. I'm sorry. I thought you were saying recoat. Sorry, I guess Erin can speak to that.
I can jump on that. So I've used UV coating many different times, and I don't actually think it really does a lot except for put harmful gases into the environment. There are different types of UV coatings that I do believe work, but those are usually cured on or baked on. And so in this particular application, it wouldn't work very well. But the paint that we're going to be using is exterior latex, and it should last a very minimum of like 10 to 15 years without seeing actual weathering from sunlight. And then also, and of course, I will be responsible for the maintenance of the mural itself. So if there's any degradation or anything like that, they'll fly me back out to fix any problems.
Yeah, and we do have a letter from ownership stating that, if in the next couple of years there's any wear and tear, we will be fully responsible for commissioning Erin to come out. We've worked with Erin on multiple properties. So
Planning to come in June, was it, to paint the mural?
sorry, what was that?
The time frame for installation?
Oh, yeah. So I guess the last piece of this is we've submitted a easement permit, or not an easement, sorry, an obstruction permit for the sidewalk. So that's just in review right now. So, if this gets approved today and the sidewalk permit gets approved, then we are planning to, Erin is coming out. He's actually doing 2 interior murals in the restaurant as well. So he's coming out on the 31st of May, and we submitted the permit last week, so there's 15 days for that. So it'll likely begin in June, yes.
Also, real quick, Amanda, they did approve us for that permit, and they're issuing it to us today.
Amazing. I must have missed that.
Cool.
Well,
It
that's
just
great
happened
news.
last night.
That's efficiency.
Mr. Chair, just a quick question. Is it standard for them to submit the maintenance plan along with this, so we have that on file?
They can submit it for the record, yeah.
We're asking for the submission of the maintenance plan for the mural to put on file as part of the approval process.
Got it.
Okay. Any further discussion? Okay, seeing none, Dan, please call the roll.
All right, Ms. Anderson?
Yes.
Mr. Dulick?
Yes.
Director Wong?
Yes.
Mr. Lozier?
Yes.
Mr. Sandberg?
Yes.
Mr. Tresick?
Yes.
Dr. Williams?
Yes.
And Mr. Strickland?
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, the motion passes unanimously.
Wonderful. Looking forward to the artwork being put in place.
Thank
very
you
much.
all.
Thank you guys for your time. We're excited to install.
All right, that concludes our certificates of appropriateness. We'll move on to concept plans. The fifth item on the agenda is case number 24044, Tremont Historic District, Midnight Art Forum Complex at 1277 Kenilworth Ave, a temporary structural art installation. Would the applicant please introduce themselves and tell us about your project?
Yes, good morning. My name's David Biro. I am one of the co-founders of Midnight Art Club here in Cleveland. We're a new arts and culture nonprofit, 501c3, and we're dedicated to public art and programming that public art. Can I just go ahead and go through the presentation?
Yes, please.
Okay, so here today is our Midnight Forum Complex. The Midnight Forum Complex is composed of 3 art installations. The art installations themselves have already been funded and built here in Cleveland. They were transported to an event called Love Burn in Miami that gave us an art grant for the installations. And then these art installations right now are sitting in storage in our studio space. I did want to emphasize that for what you're looking at here today has already been built. And so each installation, so Sophia Lumnia, to give you a definition of size, Sophia Lumnia is 64 feet by 64 feet by about 25 feet. It's about 2,000 square feet of internal space. Palladium is 40 feet by 40 feet by about 16 feet in height. It's about 1,400 square feet in internal space. The entire complex itself is close to 1 million inches of laser cut paneling, wooden paneling. That wooden paneling is 1/2 inch sandy plywood. That's marine grade plywood. And then we use 1/4 inch Luan plywood. The sandy plywood has actually been weather treated, and some of the Luan plywood has been weather treated as well too, and some of it hasn't been weather treated. We anticipate on weather treating all the plywood before it actually goes out for installation. The entire complex itself is about 20,000 pounds of actual material. If you can page over. This is an overview of the area. The reason we targeted Lincoln Park has really flat ground. It's a public park that gets used very actively by the community. And it also has an electrical box, an elusive electrical box, something that we encourage the city to install more of is more electrical boxes because art installations actually require lighting. And so we're going here at the northeast end of the park. The northern end of the park. We've actually already went out and did ground truthing. The Midnight Forum Complex will take up about 1/4 acre of land. And so to put that into some scale and into some reference for the committee here today, the commission here today, it's about 3 full-size tennis courts side by side. So if you can picture a tennis court, it'd take up the entire room or space of 3 full-size tennis courts. So it's about 175 feet in length, about 75 feet in width, and then the height will actually vary. And then what we did, there's another overview of where it's going to sit. And if you could page over again. And then there's a 2D overview of what it will look like. Sophia is on your right and Palladium is on your left. And then we have a colonnade gallery that's going to connect in between the two. If you could page over. And then here is some 3D renderings. we had short notice, so we don't have any 3D renderings of what it actually look like on the ground. But here's some 3D renderings of it in space. These are key shot renderings that you can see. Side and top view, page over. Next page. There we go. There's a trimetric view. So you can see what it looked like. Now, a colonnade gallery is not going to be that long. It's going to be shortened down to about 20 feet. If you could page over. Next page. Okay, so here's an actual picture. This was just this past February here in actually in Miami, Florida. This is Sophia Lumnia. You can see we were doing yoga inside of it. We were programming it at Loughburn, which is one of the requirements. And then you can see a pic from the outside. If you can page over. And then here's a picture of Palatium. This was done in 2023. I believe you can see there's a person in this image, so you can see reference for size. And if you could go to the next page. Here is the 2D print. So we're going to go over some engineering prints right now, unofficial engineering prints. So this is describing the installation. Sophia on the top, Palatium on the bottom with the colonnade gallery. We have about a 10-foot burn space around the actual art installation or buffer space. Some dimensions. Page down. Next page. Thank you. There's the colonnade gallery. These are going to get anchored into the ground using, we use about 24 to 36 inch straight rebar with a welded plate on top of it. Each one of these posts. And then this is made of sandy plywood. Next page. Here's describing the anchoring systems for our post, our columns throughout the installation. You can see our ground currently is like alluvium and then clay. And then you can see we're using about 2 anchors per post. I want to back up and preface here that this is going through engineering. So we're going to see what the engineers have to sit there and say. Next page. And then, so here's Sophia. Here's an updated rendering. We're actually going to have flying buttresses come in. The reason we're doing that is in case there's a 80 or 90 mile an hour wind event. We have typically 2 weather windows here in Cleveland for our large scale art. One of them's kind of right now, late May, early June, and the other is late August, early September. And that's primarily due to like thunderstorm season. So next page. Here's an overhead view, the anchoring positions. We're going to anchor around the installation in its totality. Next page. Some more anchoring positions here. This is Palatium. This is a frame view. And you can see we're going to anchor in all the columns into the ground. Next page. And then here's a trimetric view of Palatium in the anchoring positions. And I think is there another page or is it the end of the installation? So the things that we're missing here is landscape remediation and a lighting plan, something that we can provide definitely to the commission. If the commission wants to see engineering reports, that's no problem. We're waiting for those to get done. Our landscape remediation plan is, yes, we're going to kill some grass. There's going to be ground point contact with the columns. So let me preface this. This is a 14-day installation. And during the course of those 14 days, the ground points for the columns are going to kill the grass. And so the grass beneath the columns is definitely going to have to be replaced. So that's the first point. Second point is we're going to be programming the installations not only ourselves, we're going to have collaborations with businesses, individuals, and other organizations. So there's going to be traffic ways, entryways, exit ways, and during the programming, some of the grass may get damaged. We don't know. We would monitor that closely, and then that would get remediated. And then third is we have a lot of shaded area, but that's going to be covered for 14 days. So we don't know what the shade is definitely going to do to the landscaping, but we will closely monitor that as well too. And then if any of that landscaping gets damaged, it would have to be remediated either with planting new grass or planting new sod. The lighting plan is, these have already been lit at Loughburn. these installations are going to get flooded with light, typically from the interior. Once again, we can come back to the commission or planning with more updated pictures and planning for lighting, and then engineering as well too. And I think that's it. Open to any questions, and thank you for taking the time for this presentation.
Thank you very much for your presentation. We'll open it up for the Design Review Committee report.
This was reviewed by the Greater Cuyahoga Valley Historic Design Review Advisory Committee on May 7th as a concept review only. They wanted some additional information and measurements. I think there were still some questions about the weight of the colonnade columns. And they did talk a bit about the remediation plan, how it was done. Part of the conversation also, I think this is falling in between a couple of different events. So there is a very narrow window. So the remediation may not take place immediately. They discussed lighting, safety, and such like that as well. But they gave all positive feedback and a bit.
All right. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, we do have Donna Gomez from Tremont West here. I'd like to say something.
And she's online. So we'll hear from Tremont West, Donna. Mr. Dragonis, are you with us?
Hi, good morning, everyone. Nice to see you again. Thank you, Chair and committee members. Or commission members. So we've been working with Mr. Byro for a long time, a few months. I'm familiar with his work from a couple of years ago. I think he had a couple of ad hoc installations throughout Cleveland. Some of you may or may not remember, but I engaged with the artist to see if there would be a way to put him in the Lincoln Park in Tremont. And so the only concern we had really is regarding the dates and the installation. So that month we have, in the last weekend of August, we have the Tremont Arts and Cultural Festival, which is the September 21st and 22nd. And we just want to make sure that they don't preemptively start their installation during that weekend, because it is a very busy weekend and we have a lot of people slated to be there. But if there's no overlap with the dates, we defer to you guys regarding design and et cetera. But otherwise, we're pretty excited for this. And I know the business owners surrounding the park are pretty excited about this. And originally, I know I approached him about a smaller installation, but when I saw this, I was a little surprised, but I like the ambition, and it seems like they know what they're doing and they've proven the concept in other larger markets. So if there's a way to put this in Tremont, I think it'll be a great addition. I'm a little sad it's only for 2 weeks, but maybe in the future we can convince, if it's structurally sound, to stay a little longer. So thank you everyone for considering our comments from the Community Development Corporation. Appreciate you.
Thank you, Donna. There.
Thank
Speechless.
I was going to comment about the Tremont Art Festival in support of Tremont West. So thank you, Donna. And you all are seeing this conceptually because of all the missing elements on some of the components of the complex. We don't have dimensions on the middle section, the colonnade, for those individual pieces. We have an overall set of dimensions. And then, of course, the engineering, making sure it's structurally sound, not a risk to public safety. The only thing besides those obvious things that we need for final approval, I just want to get some clarification because we've gotten multiple sets of dimensions for Sophia Lumina. The paper submitted, or the presentation, had it 65 by 65 by 30. And the Greater Cuyahoga Valley, it was said that it was 70 by 70. 25-foot dome. Today is back to 64 by 64. So we've had 3 different sets of dimensions. So I just want to make sure that when it comes through for final approval, that those dimensions are accurate and that they're reflected, on the renderings as well. But, otherwise, with the remediation, occurring, I would suggest that happen after the Tremont Arts Festival. But otherwise, I'm generally, support as long as it's structurally sound.
Thank you very much. Staff recommendation.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So, as noted, this installation is planned for 14 days, so it is a temporary installation, which will be in and out, seemingly. And so we are in agreement with, Ms. Petrus on just needing additional information. I look forward to seeing those final, drawings, information from engineering about how it is adhered to the ground. And then also, noting that with all of the programming happening in Lincoln Park over the summer, or the end of the summer, just to make sure that, as Ms. Peters noted, that remediation is undertaken when appropriate, just to not remediate the ground and then have it messed up again for the next person. So I think that'll be a little bit of communication and work with Tremont West and with the city for programming that space.
Thank you. All right, with that, I'll open it up for questions and comments from the commission. All right, I'll start it off. There was a comment about the lighting and having power available. I didn't hear you mention that the lighting plan needs to be submitted as well.
We did tell David that. I didn't mention it today, but they did need to submit that.
And
They
then,
sent an updated presentation last night, which is obviously too late for today, but
Right.
for final approval, I'll be reviewing that later today.
okay, very good. And then the power source, where is that in relation to the installation? And how will that feed run? Is it gonna be at grade or buried?
David would have to answer that.
So the box is in the middle of the Colonnade Gallery, about 50 feet. We measured about 52 feet off the center of the Colonnade Gallery, and it wouldn't be buried. We anticipate having, I think, 2 runs of power. There would be a run come to the Colonnade Gallery, and then it would go straight to the left towards Palladium, and one would go straight to the right towards Sophia Lumnia. And so that regular 120 volt extension cord would be probably like a 10 gauge extension cord for the power requirements. We use a mixture. It's all LED lighting, so it could be AC. We have AC fixtures and DC fixtures as well too. We preferably wish to stay with AC fixtures, and that's exterior waterproof lighting. And so we custom laser cut our own light fixtures, and then we put electrical components into it. And then what we do is we suspend all the electrical up and out of the way so that people can't play with the electrical. We try to hide as much of the electrical cable coming into the installation as possible. But what we do provide is electrical outlets. So we would provide an electrical outlet for public use. So people can come into the installation, and if they want to set up, electrical instruments, they can play, or you want to charge their phone, read a book. It's something to that nature. But if we collaborate with these different businesses and individuals and organizations, we'll need access to electricity, definitely. So,
Okay. And so that 10 gauge extension cord, does that run overhead or on the ground?
No, it would run on the ground, and we would either stake it into the ground, or we would go get plastic cabling pass through. So you see those at events where you're walking through the event, you walk over like an electrical hump, essentially a electrical barrier that power cables are run underneath and through, so people don't, obviously step and trip on the cable. We don't want people running through the park, kids running through the park and tripping over the cable and hurting themselves. So safety's key.
I would include that information as part of your submission as well.
Sure.
Sanderson?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Sounds like a very fun, exciting project. I look forward to seeing it. I have a couple of questions. One is regarding the size. Because of the nature of Lincoln Park, there's just a lot of trees scattered throughout the park, and this is the one area that's pretty open. So I see a lot of kids using it. They play soccer there pretty regularly. That park is utilized, especially in that location. So I was wondering how the size is, especially in relation to this stage that will be erected prior to your project for the Arts in August.
So technically the stage can fit, if we were to set up the two art installations, Palladium and Sophia, the stage would comfortably fit within those, with right where the colonnade gallery sits. The stage would fit comfortably within that. So I mean, so technically,
That's not my question.
Okay.
Because that area of the park is utilized, as a ball field, I just want to make sure that this it isn't so big that it's going to keep people from being able to play soccer there.
Is when we went and we've already went and measured out the site. There's still plenty of open space for the community to utilize that park. But once again, we defer back to the recommendations of not only Tremont West, but obviously the city. So
we did show it to Parks and Recreation with relation to the timing, and they did not see a conflict. I think the group that usually plays soccer there did not pull permits for this year because they were playing at another park or recreation center instead. But they'll have to work with them directly even just to get the license permit.
Yeah, I just see kids playing soccer there.
Oh, just generally.
Just
Yeah.
using the park for
That's
that.
fair.
My second question is regarding, electrical outlets, which is great. Somebody can charge their phone or whatever. I just want to know if there's any provision for having somebody come in, plug in something, and blasting the area with loud music or creating a hazard like that.
That's a good question. Dave?
it's public art. People could come to the park currently and play amplified music. I think definitely if you're after hours, we're not going to do stuff after hours that would jeopardize the community. I think that if someone were to come in after hours and jeopardize the community, or I think even if something were to happen within hours and it wasn't sanctioned by us, I think that's a law enforcement matter. So I think people should just call 911 or call their local police and have the police come out and address that issue. We'll be monitoring the installation all throughout its placement. And so if we saw activity that was endangering the community or making a disturbance to the community, we would advise to probably cease that, right? But if we got into some sort of contention with a group of people or organizations, whoever's using it, we probably would just get law enforcement involved and there at that point. So
That's fair. Ms. Dragonis, do you have a comment? Did she raise her hand?
Hi, again, sorry.
There she is.
I think I was trying to lower my hand, but I did want to say, the park is usually pretty calm and, you know, there's already a gazebo in the park. And to this point, knock on wood, we've had little to no issues, and everything, you know, that might have been an issue, we've been productively. And so we have talked to Mr. Byro about a lot of those potential issues. And we're going to work together on making sure that this is as safe as it can be. So I appreciate those comments as well. And thanks for worrying about our park, because I know a lot of our residents see this as their front yard, essentially. A lot of them take care of it themselves, in addition to the city. But just wanted to make note that this is a really important piece of the neighborhood. So thanks again.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Norris. Any other?
Yeah, overall, I think it's a pretty neat project. I just have those couple of concerns.
I think it's great. It's 5 minutes from the house, so.
Mr. Chair, I'll just be brief. I really like that it's very architectural in nature. It feels like you know, it's almost like harkens back to some of the old churches and things like that. So I think that's really, really quite interesting. And I also really like that there's the opportunity to program it and experience it inside, outside. So I would be hopeful that it could stay for longer than 2 weeks, but understand that there's a lot of, you know, these are sort of meant to be temporary.
Inflicting schedules for the use of the park. So.
Right, yeah.
Any other comments?
And just real quick, I look forward to the communications plan. Like, how do we shout from the rooftops that this wonderful thing is going to land in this park? So I think the programming is what makes it really exciting. So I really look forward to
this. All right. Is there any, signage planned or media planning for the installation?
Yeah, we definitely are working on that now. We definitely would put signage out. Definitely would love all the, we're a new arts and culture organization. It's very tough for us here in Cleveland with the current landscape. So, we're working as hard as we can, navigating all of the challenges that we have. But we're actively holding workshops right now, open to the public workshops. If you guys actually wanted to come and see, most of this artwork is already it's currently still assembled. It was put together modularly and transported, and so we still have it in a big pile at our art studio in the Flats, 2319 Center Street, right next to the Mulberry volleyball courts. If you guys actually want to come and see some of this artwork, believe it or not, and but yeah, we definitely anticipate a definite communications plan. So
that's great. Looking forward to it. Hopefully the word really spreads. Does the applicant feel like you've received enough input to help you advance your project?
Yes, we look forward to, we'll follow up with Tara on definitely landscape and lighting and engineering and any other concerns that the city has, definitely any other concerns, to make sure that you guys have all the appropriate documentation that you guys need.
Wonderful. Thank you. Looking forward to seeing it progress. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you guys. Thank you.
All right, we'll move to the sixth item on the agenda. The applicant for number 2 certificates number.
It does not appear that they have shown up yet.
Hello, this is Brad Nosen from Property Advisors. I should be here with Mike O'Neill, the architect.
Go ahead. Please proceed with your.
Hi. Sure. Hi. How are you guys? Thank you for having us. I'm with Property Advisors Group. We are a partner with the Dalla Group. We are part of the development team, which is working on the renovation of the historic YWCA just north of this building. We are also working on the new construction of the 3-story walk-up apartments on the north side of Franklin. Thank you for having us today. This project is a 2,000 square foot basically red shed that is sitting on the site of the YWCA, but it was not contemplated as part of the original development because we're not using any historic tax credits on it. The purpose for us being here today is that we would like, this is currently zoned a single family, strangely enough. It was historically used as a gymnasium, I believe, for the YWCA. We think it is best suited to be some sort of local retail, ideally some sort of all-day cafe. It is, if you want to go to the next slide, provide a little bit of context. The project site is located just south of Franklin on West 32nd, almost across from Fairview Park there. Next slide, please. As you can see, just north of the site, there's the historic YWCA. There's the mansion and the YWCA to the right of that. Next slide, please. And again, some site context. This is just showing it's currently zoned, I believe, as limited one family, which is kind of a strange use for it. We don't see it being a viable renovation to an apartment or something like that. And we think that by zoning it to local retail, we're not only going to provide an amenity for the residents at these projects, but also for this pocket of the neighborhood. We're kind of envisioning hopefully some sort of all-day cafe, not some sort of late-night use, nothing like that. But with a park there, we think it could be a really great amenity for people to grab a coffee, bring their dog in, stroll around the park. I live on West 50th, so I would love to be able to grab something here and hang out in the park. Next slide, please. This is the current conditions of the red shed. It's got metal panel on the outside. Those windows sit about 8 feet high. It's in pretty rough shape on the outside. Obviously, we would restore it and hopefully find a tenant who could fill it. Next slide, please. And then here's some interior photos. Pretty standard barn with these cross beams here, which we're trying to bring into the design. As we get into the renderings, I'm going to bring in Mike O'Neill here to talk about the design elements he's proposing. Next slide. I'll let you go, Mike, if you like.
Hi, everyone. I'm Michael O'Neill. I'm a local architect. Working with Brad on this. This was purely conceptual here. So the purpose of these renderings wasn't a request by any particular tenant, but rather just to show what's possible in kind of a best case scenario. So we wanted to do something that is sensitive to the neighborhood, and knowing that this would be the only commercial use in this area, we wanted to kind of funnel the views and sound straight out towards the park and towards the public space, rather than having this open area that's leaking sound into the adjacent residential area. So we actually extended the roof line out to where the current sort of porch is, which would probably need to be rebuilt if we were to go this route. And then dealing with the grade change from the sidewalk, it felt natural to pull the front door back to the end of the driveway. So you enter up this sloped driveway to get to the front door, and then the porch kind of sits out on the more public facing side. We felt like this was kind of a natural way to approach the project and offers some nice opportunities for seating and informal gathering along the entryway. We checked the driveway slope and we made sure it's ADA accessible. It's under the minimum or the maximum slope threshold. And then, we'd like to preserve the exterior panels. They are in pretty rough shape, so more study would need to be done on that and what their condition is and what the costs would be to preserve those actual panels, or if there's a system that could emulate the quality and dimensions of them. That's also an option. And then just looking to bring in, some planting and some greenery, keep the industrial feel of the project. It has some, if you want to go to the next slide, we can start to get into some ideas for the inside. Signage we felt would be nice to kind of pull off the street. Again, trying to keep, the spirit of the residential neighborhood intact and not have any like big flashing signs or anything out on the face of the sidewalk edge. keeping things subtle, keeping, you know, a sort of a side sign off over the driveway. And then on the interior, there's these existing sort of kind of odd or sort of, you know, enigmatic structures that go across and hold it up. Some old truss work that could be repainted, restored a little bit. We'd probably need to pour a new floor. The floor seems to be in pretty rough shape, and the windows probably need a little bit of loving as well. I think they may be rendered a little lower than they actually are. I haven't actually been in the space, but I think those window sills are about 7 feet off the ground. So they don't pose too much of a risk of neighbors and sightline views. We could always put film on the windows that face the neighbors. And the skylights were a kind of a conceptual, optimistic idea. We may look into doing that if, depending on the tenant. This just shows a hypothetical coffee shop, you know, keeping kind of a nice rustic wood look, keeping everything we can in the space. I believe we showed some existing interior photos. You can see there's not much in there, but the features that are there and are prominent and distinctive, we'd like to try to preserve to keep this historic quality of the building.
Slide, please. Just some more interior renderings. I think we could keep going. Again, more interiors. And that's it for the presentation. We went to the Ohio City Historic Design Review. We received, I would say, largely very positive feedback on this project. They also gave us some really good suggestions, design suggestions, which I don't know if I need to share or if somebody else will. But I guess I'll turn it over to you guys as to how you'd like to proceed.
All right. Thank you very much for the presentation. Has this gone to design review?
Yes, this went to design review on May 16th. And thanks for the great segue, Brad. So the Historic Ohio City Design Review Advisory Committee reviewed this May 16th, just as a concept, so no vote was taken. They responded very favorably to it. Their concerns, I think, you know, Michael has brought most of those up. They're concerned about ADA access, and then there's a large question about vehicular access and egress with that sort of area to the north. They show it kind of as a patio space, but you know, are cars still going to be allowed to get through there, or is that going to be closed off to pedestrians? So that's just sort of something they need to figure out moving forward. And then someone expressed some concern, not concern, but just sort of making the comment that commercial uses aren't always ideal for the immediate neighbors. So just trying to be extra sensitive to that neighbor to the south that's just a single family home. So overall, yeah, very favorable from the Ohio City Committee.
And the staff have a recommendation.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is actually zone 2 family. It's an interesting reuse proposal for a former gymnasium, and it is a from back then with the metal siding. In this case, I think since it's a secondary structure, a metal roof and will be appropriate for this. The historic character of a property will be retained, and we're looking for minimal change here. And although this is a secondary structure on the property, it does have a highly visible facade there on West 32nd. Given that, we're looking at it strictly, this does not technically meet the Secretary of the Interior standards. They're removing 3 windows and changing on that West 32nd facade, introducing an opening. So even though it is a second, if we're looking like that, we're looking at it very strictly. That's what it's a secondary structure. That driveway also comes up. Is that a fire access drive? And we need to make sure that if that is, then that needs to remain open. They could, if it's not, then they could probably move the curb cut as well. So we have the reuse against the significance of the building and contributing, not being zoned for this, and allowing for the not holding to the strict standards in this case. So we're kind of still feeling this out, but no immediate direction for us. So it's kind of, it's an interesting case here.
And no immediate objection.
No. We'll remain neutral at this time.
Understood. And your question about fire access, that would be a review at PetBot, right? To discuss
Well, I
that.
think, well, is it, I mean, if they answer that now and say it is fire access, then I think it really changes what they're proposing.
Right, so they'll have to, the applicant has to investigate that with,
Yeah, it's so we will need vehicular access because there is parking there behind that building, which is intended for, we call it the mansion, just to the immediate north of that. So there is I guess ADA or a handicap parking behind the red building. So we will need vehicular access. What we may have to give up is that sort of sitting area on the side in order to ensure that we have proper vehicular and pedestrian access. As it relates to fire, we also have a main entrance off of Franklin that would allow access to both buildings. So my suspicion, and I will confirm this, is if the intention is for the fire to enter off Franklin, if that makes sense.
How wide is that drive aisle?
It's 15 feet.
Okay, so it's not wide enough for fire access, right? So that.
Sure. So fire must be off Franklin.
have you started the zoning review process? I'm
For this,
assuming
no.
you need a
we-
variance.
We would need a variance, which is why part of why we've come to you guys. So we started with Ohio City Design Review, landmarks. I'm going to meet with the community this evening, and then when we get into our schematic, hopefully we would then submit to BZA if I understand the process correctly.
And the prior use as a gym, would it be grandfathered in at all? Had a prior variance been issued, I wonder, for that use?
I'm not sure. We were just told that a long time ago it was a workout area for YWCA residents. I'm not sure if that's even what the use was. That's what I was told.
Might help your case, given that it traditionally hadn't been used as a residence.
Gotcha.
And if,
again,
Mr. Chair, that was built as a gymnasium specifically, and I think it may have predated zoning. So that was so that's why it goes into that.
I can chime in. This is Joyce Wong from planning. I think from a planning and zoning perspective, it's a lower intensity use. And so it feels appropriate as a neighborhood scale use here. And so, it aligns with our 15-minute cities idea of, having amenities close to you that you can walk to, or bike to, or stroll. And so, to me, it's makes a lot of sense. But from a design perspective, I had some questions. I understand the porch concept because sort of matching the other porches in the area. I struggle that there's not a stairwell up onto the porch from the sidewalk because that separation of grade will make it feel very private and less accessible. So I would just consider thinking about should there be steps up the front through that entryway facing the street to make it a little bit more welcoming from that perspective. The grade change is really what is a struggle for me, but otherwise I think it's really interesting. I like the side entrance on the back and the signage coming out from the side. It feels very natural it feels organic to the neighborhood.
Very good. Thank you, Director Wong. Other commission comments or questions?
Mr.
Anderson.
You want to go
Ms.
ahead?
Anderson, I was looking that way first. So I get to you next.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This would be an isolated commercial use. I don't think there's anything really commercial around there. And I think if that is to be put in place, they must defer to the community and the community's response to this. If the community is welcoming, if it's overall positive, fine. But if the community is not, it's not fine. It's really sitting in the middle of a very residential area. You know, that's optimum importance there, is that it's okay with the neighbors, you know, especially on 32nd Street, but just surrounding there, you know, there any issues with traffic or noise or whatever, that needs to be thoroughly vetted before they're granted permission to do this. I have some issues with the way that porch is presented. I don't like the roof line extending on the original roof. In that area, you have porches, and I don't think that has the feel of a porch. I think if you're going to put a roof over that sitting area, I would maybe do like a shed roof, maybe even a partial shed roof, and not the entirety. You know, at a lower level than just extending the roof line now. So for the time being, I think those are my comments.
You're Ms. Anderson, Sunbury.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I really like the design. I think it's a good use of the space for the neighborhood. I think I echo what has been said before about the roof line. I think that doesn't feel as residential to me. But I think to Carl's point, the openings on the front, it does look on Google Earth that there's 3 windows on the front that have been boarded up. So I don't know that a full garage door opening is out of the question. I think there is there's a precedent for windows on the front. So I think I would be very open to some kind of opening on the front again. But I think I really like how you saved a lot of the structural on the inside. I think that's something that's very unique, and you don't see that a lot in our buildings. And I like how you've preserved that. And I like the standing seam roof on this. I think that really fits with the style of this building. Again, I think it's already been said, but the porch doesn't feel as residential as it should. And I think a little bit more thought needs to go into the porch and making it accessible from the front, bringing the roof down, and just making it a little more in line with the rest of the neighborhood. But overall, I really like this.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, I think it's a great example of kind of an anomalous condition in what is otherwise pretty consistent street. And I love that it's this bright object as this kind of transition from the historic redevelopment there on the corner right next door. It takes advantage of that green space from a beachhead perspective. So I think it's really great. I definitely want to concur and second Ms. Anderson's comments about, and everyone else's comments about the porch. I think it just needs a lighter touch, and I think it really goes back to the Secretary's standards as well, that it should clearly appear very different. So, and you've heard that comment, but maybe consider something transparent. You know, you think about buildings like this, and if you would have put a porch on it, say to cover those windows or the doors that may become on that west facade, the idea of a polycarbonate shed with a light touch of columns that maybe have more of a rhythm and give that sense of an industrialized version of what a porch might be like. And the stairs, for Director Long, there's got to be access there. Even from egress perspective, you're going to want that. So I think how that gets integrated into that, just integrating the stairs, I think will offer a lot of really nice opportunities and clues for how this can be crafted and I think that neighborhood approval, that neighborhood input is going to be really important. And I think the design of that porch can really go a long way towards getting people accepting and excited about this. It's a heck of an organized street, as everybody knows. So thank you.
Okay, very good.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. So I just want to, I guess, reiterate Ms. Anderson's comment about the community, in other words, about the community aspect. I think that will be, I think, really important to get that buy-in. And I think you mentioned that you're taking this to the community, I think, later today, which is great. That said, I think there are precedents within, the neighborhood where you do have a different use, either, restaurant, coffee shop, retail, sort of interspersed within the residential area. So I don't think that this, to me, feels completely foreign to what happens within the Ohio City and Detroit Shoreway neighborhood. When it comes to the design, I'm a little less concerned about the design as presented than some of my colleagues. I think that this clearly is not a residential property. So having a porch that feels more residential, to me, doesn't necessarily, I don't see that being a challenge with what's being presented. I do think though that maybe maybe the coloration of that extension or the materiality of that extension is differentiated, so it does feel like that it is an addition to the building. So maybe it's not red, maybe it's a different steel of some other sort or something like that, or an aluminum one. I do agree though with the front porch comment related to access. I think that having some sort of access from the sidewalk directly onto that would help it feel much more welcoming. I don't have, again, this is a secondary utilitarian structure. So looking at the large opening in the front, I think keeping it within the zone of the windows to me makes sense. I like the fact that it does provide, an open view into the space. And again, I think that helps make it feel much more welcoming than if, the windows themselves were to be, brought back into use. Overall, I think this is a really interesting proposal. I think figuring out how to balance the entry point, further up the drive and that vehicular access may be something to consider as things continue to progress. I mean, if there is access to that area off of Franklin, maybe there's a way to close off this as a vehicular entry point, if that's a possibility, to make that feel more part of this, particular use. Whether it be seating or being able to legitimately have an entrance that's further up, that's accessible. So, I think overall this is really interesting, and interested to hear the community feedback and see how this continues to progress.
Thank you, Mr. Larson. Any other comments from the commissions? I think that this is fantastic project. My initial reaction was I just really like the design very much. I agree with my fellow commissioners, though. They've enlightened me in terms of the enhancements that could be made. I think conceptually, looking at potentially lowering that gable would make the porch a little more intimate and just scale down the front of the building a little bit. Is that element in the gable, is that a functioning vent or what is that?
That's an existing feature. I think it's an exhaust vent. I don't really know for sure what it is, but we didn't want to interfere with it. I mean, that was the gable extension felt kind of natural to just kind of keep the facade visible, not cover it up too much, and just really make it feel like a nice outdoor room. And again, yeah, we weren't necessarily trying to mimic a residential porch here. The porch is sort of a conceptual term in terms of what we were going for here. The garage door lines up with the 3 existing windows that are boarded up. So we felt like that was a good scale for it. And then that other door is an existing opaque door. We would see it as a clear door. And I do think there's a way we could incorporate a staircase up and maybe make that, you know, it just becomes then a question of sort of psychological arrival of, you know, where's the front door? Obviously, we want most of the seating to be by the sidewalk side, which then means that if this were a coffee shop, again, it could be a number of uses. But, you know, I think we would want to try to encourage people to enter through the backside. But I do agree that having the option to walk right up from the sidewalk onto the porch and into the seating area is good for flow, and also, as someone mentioned, for egress.
And again, this is a concept, and you don't have a tenant.
We don't have a
So
tenant.
the programming, you know, by the tenant is going to dictate some of the egress, you know, issues that have been discussed.
Right. Anything could change.
We've seen garage door solutions that look like windows, you know, so that might be possible to overcome some Secretary of the Interior standards that might be violated, you know, with this initial concept. So there's a number of different things that can be explored. Further, Carl, you have a comment?
I do. No matter what this becomes, there's going to be a higher level of pedestrian and interaction here. So we have to keep in mind safety as well. And I wonder, keeping that drive aisle, but making it one way in might cut back on some safety issues. And because coming down that way, the visibility is not going to be good. And I can see some problems coming of that. That might alleviate some of those issues.
There is, as the site is designed, as the overall project is designed, which has received approval, I believe had to receive approval from your committee, your commission here, is that there is parking. There's a separate parking lot behind this building, which has ADA parking, handicap parking spaces. That is not connected to the overall parking lot, which has access off of Franklin. So this was always contemplated as a in and out drive aisle on that north side of the shed here.
Okay, so then,
and those parking spots serve the residential building.
But as I recall, Brad, from the site plan you showed me, there's only 6 parking spaces up there.
Correct. There's
So
only
it's
6
so it's very low usage. There would only be a couple cars going in and out of there every day, which
Correct.
you know doesn't necessarily negate safety concerns, but there's not a high volume of cars using this drive lane.
Correct. Yeah, there's only 6 parking spaces. And yeah, the overall site plan was approved, I believe, by this commission, planning, etc. So
yeah, I would definitely take that into consideration, how you address the sidewalk and pedestrian safety as a part of this as well.
sure, we could put up some you know, pedestrian, I guess, mirrors for pedestrians and cars to see who's coming up and down that drive lane. It's the first thing I can think off the top of my head.
Okay. Any further comments or questions? Does the applicant feel like you've received enough input to help you advance your design?
I believe so. And Mike, how about you?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, there's definitely, you know, some interesting points that were brought up today about just the character of it. I think a lot will depend on what the neighbors have to say, and also what a potential user might want. You know, it could be a complete 180 from what we have here. So we'll just have to see. I think, you know, we just kind of wanted to show something that captures the spirit of what we think is possible here. And I think that there seems to be general support for it. So that's great.
Absolutely. And can your commission remind me, we have taken notes. Do you guys provide us notes as well? I haven't been through landmarks in a couple of years. I apologize.
We usually do minutes, but this will be available on YouTube for you to view, so if you need to go back and listen to anything.
Perfect.
There.
Thank you.
All right, good. Hopefully that's helpful.
It is.
All
Very
right,
much. Thank you.
looking forward to seeing your project advance.
Wonderful. Thanks for your time. Appreciate it.
All right, we'll move on
Thank
to
you.
our last item on the agenda under concept plans, case number 24046, Lorraine Avenue Historic District, Market House, 2621 Lorraine Avenue renovation and addition. Would the applicant please introduce yourself and tell us about your project?
Yes, thank you. Wesley Harper with Horton Harper Architects. And what we're proposing here is a renovation of the existing structure at 2621 Lorraine Avenue, and then an addition to the rear of that existing structure. So the document that you have in front of you here today is essentially what has been submitted to the state historic tax folks at SHPO. And so we started to get through that process, and this project has changed a bit in response to the comments that they've given. The project that we presented to the Ohio City Landmarks folks was a little bit different in terms of the addition's height, number of units, and roof profile. So with that said, I'll go through the documents that we have in front of us here, a little more technical than some of the other presentations, but bear with me till we get to the end of the presentation, which has some renderings and color proposals. So you can see here the existing structure at the top right. That is Lorraine Avenue in front of us. The view is of the northern facade of the structure, and then the photo at the bottom right is of the western facade. So the structure itself is 2 stories. It has a 3rd floor loft in the interior portion of the building. It's more of a gable roof structure for the majority of the building, but we have kind of an attached facade that makes it feel like a more typical commercial building. But this is a pretty typical design feature of some of these structures that were built pre-1900 on Lorraine. So on the 1st floor, we have an existing tenant, which is a tarot card reader. And then behind them are apartments, and then there's apartments on the 2nd floor as well. The feedback we've gotten from SHPO is that they'd like us to maintain the existing siding until we can figure out the condition of it. In our opinion, it will likely have to be removed and completely replaced with a new siding due to termite infestation and just degradation over the decades. But we would be proposing to maintain some of the detailing, or actually all of the detailing and the trim that we have here, essentially replicating what we have on site right now for the existing structure. There, as far as I can tell, you haven't found any historic photos of the building. There are a handful of photos of what was to the east of us, and those structures had a relatively similar design, but there was nothing specific to this building that we've been able to find. I don't know if the city landmarks have any pictures in their archives, but we have been unable to find anything to this point. Next page, please. So here we have the existing site plan. To the east of us, we have an existing parking lot. Our site is 32 feet wide by 138 feet deep, and you can see that the existing structure is a few different pieces visually, where we have kind of the front structure and then 2 additions that taper a bit in terms of their scale. The southernmost portion, which you see here kind of at the rear, is more of a flat roof structure that we originally proposed to demolish, but SHPO is requiring us to maintain that portion. In the rear is simply a vacant lot. They've kind of made it their own green space back there, but that's essentially the existing conditions. Next. So the existing conditions, as I mentioned, we have retail space fronting Lorraine Avenue. Interestingly, when we do move forward with this project, the tarot card business will maintain their space after the renovation. They do a good business here, from what I understand. So the retail will remain. It will get a bit smaller in footprint as we're looking to add more residential space in the rear. The second floor is all apartments, and then a third floor lofted area is a feature of the Lorraine fronting apartment. Next. Here we have the existing elevations. Again, facing Lorraine Avenue, we'd be looking to basically renovate the existing storefront to its current design. All trim work would be hopefully replaced if we could get SHPO's approval on that. So in the elevation to the south elevation, you can kind of see how the building tapers back as it heads south. Next. We've had to provide some basic window profiles for SHPO. Here those are. Next. And so the proposed site plan includes obviously the existing 2.5-story structure, but then adding a 2-story addition that contains 4 apartments to the rear of the building. SHPO has really put us in a box in some ways of what we can do back here in regards to the scale of the addition relative to the existing building. Even in the site plan, you can tell that southernmost existing portion of the building is kind of viewed as a hyphen between the larger existing structure and the new structure. We would, of course, to kind of elevate the finish of everything here, a new walkway would be put in on the eastern side of the building. The new structure would have some planters in front of first floor units to provide some measure of privacy relative to that walkway. The new AC compressors would be put along the western property line, and to our west we have a parking lot for Hansa House, and then an existing 2-story industrial structure more towards the southwest corner. In order to fully maximize the footprint of the site, we are pushing that southern wall of the proposed building all the way to that southern property line. The developer of this project also owns the immediate property to the south. It's labeled as vacant property, kind of to the upper right of the new 2-story addition. And so we're going to be going through the process of getting an apartment building approved there as well. So while the wall would be windowless and kind of featureless, the idea is that it would eventually be covered by new construction on that parcel. Next. Here we have the proposed floor plans. Again, as I mentioned, on the first floor, the retail space would be getting a little bit smaller to accommodate a new stairway that meets code up to the upper level. And then you'd have an apartment unit within the remaining footprint of the first floor. And then you can see the addition, which is hatched in a darker shade towards the southern portion of the site. That would also have its own egress stair with 2 units per floor for 2 stories. That first unit facing Lorraine on the second floor would utilize the loft space that's there currently, and then the units on the second floor in the existing structure would utilize the vaulted ceiling of that structure. Next. So here we have the new elevations. Again, this is, of course, more of a conceptual review. We, of course, have more detail in terms of trim profiles and siding profiles and things like that when we come back. But, you know, again, this is essentially showing what we're proposing, a larger concept, I suppose. I'd say the critical elevations here are the east elevation, where you can see the existing structure to the right, and then the kind of hyphen of that final addition of the existing building, and then our addition being more of a singular profile gable roof structure that is more diminutive in scale than we previously proposed relative to the existing building, but you know, again, is something that was a requirement for SHPO to move to the next step. Next. And so here we have a handful of renderings showing the proposed renovation and addition at the top right. We have that same Lorraine Avenue view. The color that was selected here was from the Ohio City Landmarks palette of suggested colors. And we matched that with more of a grayish black trim color. At the upper right, you can see the eastern facades. And so again, that addition in the rear is a bit more diminutive than the existing structure north of it. Some of the feedback we received from the Ohio City Landmarks Commission was, you know, this hyphen could be well served to be a different color than the blue. And so I think naturally we'd probably lean towards the charcoal color for that hyphen. So just something to think about when we're reviewing this. At the bottom left, you can see, again, that gable roof profile relative to the existing building, and then the pedestrian access to all apartment units along that side. And then at the bottom right, we have the western view looking towards the southeast, again, showing how that addition interacts with the existing profile of the building. Next. And then two views, which are essentially more of a pedestrian perspective. At the top, we have a view looking towards the southeast, basically from the northern sidewalk of Lorraine Avenue, and then the opposite view looking more towards the southeast. So as I mentioned, we're going through the whole SHPO process right now, and I guess I can open it up to any questions, comments you may have. Thanks.
Okay, thank you very much for your presentation. Did this go to the design review?
Yes, it did, Mr. Chair. The Historic Ohio City Design Review Advisory Committee saw this project as a concept last week, May 16th, 2024. Very favorable and supportive of it. I think Wesley has kind of summarized all of the comments they made and kind of given responses. There were some questions about the cladding of the south facade. It's truly the back of the building, and there's an expectation that the lot immediately adjacent would be developed. So it's probably not an issue for long, if at all. There's a desire to differentiate the old from the new, particularly in that hyphen area. So that can be done with, you know, materials, different building vocabulary, certainly different color. So that was kind of their primary, I guess, critique of the project. As Mr. Harper mentioned, you know, when they saw it, they were looking, the Ohio City Committee, they were looking at a 3-story, more of a block building. And Mr. Harper explained that they were getting some pushback from SHPO about the scale of that. The local committee was very supportive of the additional scale of 3 stories and, encouraged pushing back on the SHPO about that. So, if the commission feels strongly that essentially the addition's too small, I'm happy to advocate for the, on behalf of the project to the State Preservation Office. I don't know that that would get any traction, but just, if you guys feel as strongly as the local committee did, I'm happy to reach out to the state and share those comments. But I think, what they presented here too looks appropriate.
And does staff have a recommendation in addition to the design review comments?
We're in mostly agreement with the design review committee. Main thing is, in addition, addition being proposed is appropriate. 2 stories or 3 stories, they both kind of fit that same feel. One thing is that the new construction should be differentiated from the old, and so having that hyphen or new materials on the addition or some kind of differentiation to show that it is not originally historically that long of a property. And then just some notes that we'll need more clarification on any variances needed for the setback, since it is going all the way to the back of the property, as well as the AC unit locations and how close they are to the property line as well.
All right, thank you very much. That'll open it up for questions and comments from the commission. Who would like to start?
I guess I can start. Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I'm very supportive of this project. It's great to see the properties on Lorraine one by one being renovated or restored or missing teeth filled in. And I think this is a really great example of taking an existing property, renovating it, expanding it to meet current market needs. I can't say that I have an opinion on the 2 versus 3 story because we're only seeing the 2 story here. But I guess I have a couple of comments, but the first question that I have is, so I'm assuming that this is going for state historic tax credits, which is why this is going through SHPO?
That's correct.
Okay, gotcha. So, while, we may advocate, they're ultimately the ones who will decide whether or not this receives the funding. So I having worked on a number of projects where there's been SHPO review, typically, it's always good to defer to that, especially where money is concerned. And I guess so a question for staff. I'm assuming that no additional historic photos were able to be found for this either.
Really looked, so we can now.
Yeah, I mean, if you're able to do that, I think it'd be interesting just to understand. Maybe we're seeing the building in its current iteration. It'd be interesting to understand if there was any additional historic detailing that may be able to be amplified on the front facade or brought back if that felt like it made sense. I think that the blue color choice is certainly bold. It certainly stands out. I may ask just for maybe another couple of color studies to see if this is really the right one for this particular location. But again, I think that's something that I would wouldn't make a requirement, but would maybe make a recommendation that final coloration be reviewed with staff. I think it is, as you can kind of see from the existing photos, that the main facade does have an interesting. It's not just sort of flat regular clapboard siding. It has a nice detail to it. And again, I think as you mentioned, Mr. Harper, that you would. If it is in such a condition where it needs to be replaced, you would replace that sort of with the same detailing. And that's correct?
Correct. Yeah, we would match the profile of the existing siding. Probably it would be required to be wood by SHPO. And then, as you mentioned, there's kind of a nice profile in between the three windows on the Lorraine facade where the siding has almost got like a scalloped profile to it. We would be recreating that to match existing.
Gotcha. Thank you. I think, and then the one, I guess, final question, maybe comment is, in the site plan, it looks like, and you had, I think maybe Carl had mentioned or someone had mentioned the placement of the AC units along the west side of the property. Is there going to be any attempt to conceal those with either some sort of fencing or landscaping or anything like that?
Yes, we would be building a new fence there, most likely. I think there is something there right now, but I believe it's chain link that's in disrepair. So it's my expectation that that would be, outfitted with a new fence to block those. And just from a, theft perspective, we want to keep those out of sight.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Thank you. I think those are all of my comments.
Thank you, Mr. Lozier. Anyone else,
I'll
Director?
speak. I'm pretty satisfied with the scale of the back building. I have no strong opinion about 2 or 3 stories as well. I am happy to see this be, in a new life, and very okay with the new 2-story addition going all the way back to the end of the property. I feel like that fits the kind of the historic pattern and rhythm. I do have a similar sentiment about the color, and want to see the color study happen. And I agree with the idea of taking a look at the back portion, especially just to kind of see if that can fade into the background a little bit more than be so bold for the whole length of that stretch. So those are my comments. Thank you.
Thanks. All right, I'll offer my comments. I feel the same way about the addition in the rear. I don't think that I would object to a 3-story addition. But again, you choose to battle with SHPO, that's up to you to have the pro forma overrule their initial opinion. Good luck.
Yep.
I hate the color. It looks like toothpaste. And, so studying some other color, I think, would be appropriate in an historic palette. And the storefront, is there any historical reference with regard to the configuration of that storefront? I mean, oftentimes there's remnants of mosaics or tiles that you can still get a hint as to what was there originally. I'm just interested to know whether this configuration that's proposed is accurate in terms of historic reference.
Yeah, we need to do a little more investigation on that ourselves. I know typically the glazing of the storefront that's parallel with the street has often been broken up as time goes on. So maybe that was one singular piece of glass along the front. I think unless we want to look at the photos we have from the adjacent buildings, which I believe we have some from the 30s and the 50s or 60s. If we wanted to use that as precedent, depending if there's something to take from that, I'd be open to that. But I guess maybe there could be a conversation with staff on maybe just a little details like that where, it was probably a singular pane of glass, or, the solid transoms were, much bolder color relative to the rest of the building, things like that. I think we'd be open to hearing everybody out on that.
Yeah, and through the chair, we're happy to work with you, Mr. Harper. likely, yeah, the storefront's been modified at some point. Clearly, the transom probably would have originally been a bit higher. It's at the top of the door height now, which is something people did for convenience when putting in a newer storefront system, going back many years now. So yeah, probably wouldn't have had those panels above the transoms. The transom bar would have been a bit higher. You would have had that one sheet of glass for each of those storefront sides instead of broken up into two, that sort of thing. I also noticed you kind of have a transom bar that's in existing condition now that runs across the front at the plane of the front of the building. That's a later addition. I think they tossed that up in 2014 or so to basically be the bottom part of a sign panel that they installed. So that kind of detail isn't historic, and I personally like to see it. It's basically a chin-up bar hanging there, so I'd like to see that removed so you go to the more open, historic storefront feel. But we are happy to work with you and try and do some research on our own as well.
Great.
And as you formulate your formal presentation, I would like to see more context photos along Lorraine, rather than just the white box images of the neighborhood.
Okay.
Mr. Sandberg.
Can you speak a little more to it looks like you have a trash enclosure at the very end of the building, and do the residents walk that to Lorraine? Is that the intent, or has that been fully thought through?
Yes, it would be taken by the management company. I'm not sure what the cadence would be on that, but at least once or twice a week, those would be taken to the sidewalk for either private or City of Cleveland pickup. It's probably a private pickup.
Just because of its location, I didn't know if there was some access through the parking lot next door, or if the intent was to walk it all the way to Lorraine.
Yeah, the intent would be to walk it to Lorraine along the new sidewalk.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Further questions or comments? Does the applicant feel like you've received sufficient input so that it will help you advance your project?
I have. Thank you.
All right. Very good. Thank you very much. Looking forward to seeing it progress.
Yeah, me too.
All right. So that concludes our concept plans. We'll move on to reports, Landmark Commission policy adoption.
Yes, so Jessica's going to walk us through a presentation about the window policy that was sent out yesterday. I apologize that it just went out yesterday. We're kind of making last minute tweaks, and it's a pretty large issue. So yeah, we wanted to make sure we had all our thoughts. If it needs to be, I mean, I think Jessica's presentation will be pretty thorough, but if you guys have, additional questions or just need more time to digest, it's up to you.
We can put a formal adoption.
Yes, yeah. If you feel like that's appropriate. But I think you'll find a lot of the policy that we're proposing is just sort of formalizing what's been practiced for a number of years now. So with that, I'll stop talking.
Thank you. So the window repair and replacement policy, we're looking at just specifically residential windows, because we tried adding commercial windows and that got a little long. So that will be a separate thing entirely. Also, in our current policy, it directs people to the storefront program policy book that goes through all of it pretty in depth. And so, yes, it was sent out yesterday. So hopefully you had a chance to look. It's split into a few different sections. First one is window types that are just identifying the different window types. That usually comes into a question of what kind of windows are they. And so these are all pictures of houses in our historic districts with a variety or houses and buildings in our historic districts with a variety of windows, and specifying they're typical to specific styles and time periods. And it's important to have that bit of education coming in of understanding what your house looks like, why it looks like that, determine appropriate windows and elements in your house when you're replacing a window if the window has been lost. So there's quite a few different ones. It's not all of the residential windows that are out there, but it's a good assortment of what we commonly see. And then window materials is a bit of a longer section, essentially stating the different commonly found windows in residential homes in Cleveland, or residential buildings in Cleveland, that aluminum and vinyl clad wood, composite, fiberglass, glass block, leaded, or stained glass, wood, and vinyl. And the materials impact the appearance of the home. It's can be subtle depending on the type of house, but it still impacts it. And it's something to keep in mind. Obviously, that's what we do in and out, is tell people about how their windows will change what the house looks like. And so it's important to understand the different options for window materials, because a lot of times there's an understanding that there's only one option for replacement windows. And so having that bit of education of saying there are other options. They might not be the same contractor, they might not be in the same area or as easy to find, but there are options out there. And so kind of making sure everyone knows the different options, as well as the average lifespan for those options. Now, depending on who you talk to, what the manufacturer is, how it's manufactured, that can change the lifespan of the windows. From what we found on average, old growth wood windows, obviously 50+ years, as long as they're maintained properly, and proper maintenance across the board will extend the life of any window, just because they do need some help. And then you have like newer wood, doesn't last as long as the older wood does on average. Aluminum windows and vinyl windows, all of them, depending on the source that you look at, are about 20 to 40 years with the newer vinyl windows that are coming out. When you add exterior cladding, that can expand the lifespan. And so there are vinyl and aluminum clad options for wood windows. There's also aluminum cladding for vinyl windows that some companies offer as well, just to kind of add that extra opportunity for variety in color and protection to the window itself. And then you've got fiberglass or composite windows that have a slightly expanded lifetime of about 30 to 50 years. Add skylights in there because they do pop up. They don't last as long, obviously. They're on the roof. They need to be installed properly, otherwise they will wear out much faster, and they're about 10 to 20 years. And then glass block windows, depending on their installation, about 15 to 30 years. We do specify in there that glass block windows are more appropriate to be, if used at all, as replacement windows to basements, not found in higher levels of the house, unless that is a specific style to a specific mid-century modern style house, which we don't have very many of them, so not really relevant there. Also, that section does specify that decorative or unique windows should be maintained and preserved. So not replaced, but repaired, maintained, and that can be on any side of the house. I know usually we focus on the front, but there's also sides and rear where they do have decorative windows and like dining rooms and things like that, that we'd like to see retained. The next section is really just going into the window features. Obviously, if you work in the field, you talk a lot about the different pieces, parts of windows. This is just a very basic outline of the different window parts, just to kind of say the different important things, because sashes are important. Muttons are something we talk about a lot, and they do impact the appearance of the window. The difference between muttons and mullions was also mentioned in there, as well as the window panes, just to kind of help with understanding when we're talking about something, that's what we're referring to. Sash, and that can be where the muttons are, their sash replacement, full frame replacement. So there's a lot of different ways. And so just kind of outlining the importance of those parts. And like sashes can be repaired if they're on wood windows. You can take them out, you can put them back in. Windows can be, or the glass panes can be replaced on wood windows. And so just the different options that people have. And also a little bit about the sills and the casing, because those get lost a lot of times when there's siding replacement projects on original wood windows. It's just, they go from having depth to just a little border. And that's something that has happened ever since they started installing vinyl and aluminum on wood houses. But it's something to keep in mind that, you know, windows did have a little bit of depth and 3D appearance that now it's turned into a little bit flat. And then a big one is repair. We prefer repair as much as possible. And that is, you know, maintenance and looking at replacement only when features are missing or repair is no longer an option. And so that's an impetus on applicants to say like, these windows do not work, showing that they do not work. And then say, okay, well, that's something that can't be repaired, understandably. Replacement is the option for there. Going into that whole no windows maintenance free, they can be less maintenance than other windows, but all windows have some type of maintenance that's required. That should be part of that whole looking over your house on a yearly or bi-yearly basis. And then also an important thing to mention when repairing windows is the lead paint that may be on older windows. And so being able to just acknowledge that is a concern. And a lot of times if people are using programs that are helping to eliminate lead in homes or lead dangers, a lot of times they're saying that windows should be fully replaced because they're covered in lead paint. And so really just acknowledging that as that's something that we have seen, probably will continue to see, and it's something that we need to be acknowledged or aware of, that impacts repair versus replacement just with the remediation that would be needed on that paint, especially because windows are used the most, and that's where lead paint hazards come in, is when you're using something that has lead paint on it. And then for replacement, we just offer recommended treatment if repair is no longer an option, if windows are going to be replaced. Once again, kind of outlining that wholesale replacement of windows, not generally recommended because it should only be done if windows are no longer existing or can't be repaired. And those are, existing dimensions and profiles should be matched for the glass and sash. Framing and trim should be replicated and retained as much as possible. Existing window style should be matched or an acceptable option provided to replicate the appearance of the original window style. And that's something from the National Park Service standards as well. We're acknowledging it doesn't have to be the same exact, but it has to have the same appearance of that existing or original window. Divided light sashes and mullions should be matched with the same configuration, appearance, and depth. Interior grids or grids between glass layers should not be installed, so it should be exterior or 3D or something that adds that depth that a window should preferably have. Ornamental and unique windows should be retained and not removed. Mentioned original window openings should not be eliminated or altered. That's kind of a preference. So that falls into that whole case-by-case basis of what are they planning and proposing for the house. But in some cases, you've seen houses that have windows that are boarded up, changed, and then someone comes in and wants to restore the house and then puts all the windows back. So preferences would be to not change the original window locations as possible. And then installing higher quality windows initially helpful in the long term to provide a higher return on investment than lower quality windows that would need to be replaced within the 20 years. So to get that full return on investment and longer term windows, making sure the window quality is high. If it's wood, if it's aluminum, if it's vinyl, whatever, because that way it won't be, replacement in 10 years, replacement in 15 years, but give it a little more time. Something that is kind of a landmarks. What we prefer, what we always tell people is if you're installing glass block windows, mortar should have to be gray and not white. And then for storm windows, which are a very appropriate option for weatherization and protection, also keeping your older windows, they should be installed and not obtrusive and be able to be removed with minimal damage using existing storm systems or, damaging to the frame of the window, to the siding of the house, anything like that. They're just giving options for storms. And they also require maintenance and should fit or reflect the window pattern behind. Something that has come up a few times is window screens, which may or may not have been original to the house. Obviously, screens are a bit of a later invention versus a window. But today's code regulations do require screens, and so that's something that brought up. A lot of times you see approval for like a half screen if it's a single hung or double hung window, or storm windows that have screen options, so you can switch it. But the screen does impact the view of the window. Sometimes when you have a screen, you can't see the grids or the buttons. So that's just something to be aware of. And maybe a half screen would be more appropriate if there's a pattern on the top sash of the window. And then the operation of the window is important. And then it goes a little bit into like sash replacement versus insert windows versus a full frame replacement. But that's all a little bit nitty gritty. And then we do outline our process, which is kind of where that policy comes in, which is change the style, material, mullions, type, or adding or removing windows may require approval through design review. Depending on that window, appropriate placement materials are, for a wood window, would be aluminum clad wood, composite, or fiberglass, which is generally done. Non-primary elevation replacements are reviewed by landmark staff, and that is non-street facing or non-visible from the public right-of-way elevation. So there comes into some, like we saw this morning, where there is, another side of the home that's not street facing, but it is a little more visible than, the back of a house or something like that. And then also reiterating that whole decorative windows not recommended to be replaced, and adding in condominium buildings recommended to have a master plan for their window replacement to ensure that windows are replaced cohesively to fit the facades of the house. So you can see pictured when you have two different kinds of windows next to each other, it just throws off the whole look. And then we do also offer a little bit further information, which when it's a PDF will be active links to different City of Cleveland resources for window replacement, as well as Secretary of the Interior standards and National Park Service preservation briefs referring to windows and exterior maintenance, and also the EPA lead information. And then we like a little handout as well. So we have the full 7 or so page policy, and then a shorter handout that would kind of be supplemental to it. That's easier, more colorful, easier to hand out when people come in. Any questions?
I just want to toss out, first of all, thank you to Jessica. She really took the lead on this one, and this is, windows are a huge issue in preservation, as you guys all know. But she, really kind of kept grinding on this one until we had, cohesive policy after Carl and I kept bringing up random, what about? And if and when this does pass, we'll have passed 3 of these policies then. So I think at that point, I'd, like to get comms approval and then get some of these printed up, have them available on our website, and then start visiting with the council members and explaining what these are and how these work, get out to the CDCs and do the same thing. So feels like 3 is enough that we can start taking it around and informing everyone else about it. But sure. That being said, I'll leave you guys to discuss or ask questions.
Okay, Mr. Lawrence, pick us up.
Thank you. I guess related to the couple of initiatives that we've sort of reviewed over the past couple of weeks. I guess is there? I'm assuming there's probably going to be a similar one for siding. I guess one question that I have is, so there's sort of like the quasi in between. There's the siding, there's the window, but then there's the trim that goes around the windows. So I guess just one thought or just seed to plant, like thinking about how those things interact with one another, and if we, whether it be part of the window portion or the siding portion or a separate one that talks about the integration of all of these different components together. I think that would be helpful to have similar standards to that too. I guess, so we mentioned generally sort of in-kind replacement based on the Secretary's standards. And I'm wondering, if we want to go a little bit further in that with regard to primary elevations, where if there's existing vinyl windows, replacing those with vinyl doesn't seem to be consistent with, what we're talking about with new construction, as well as homes that don't have vinyl windows on those primary facades. And I'm wondering, for consistency's sake, we can't be any more lax than the Secretary's standards, but can we either strongly recommend or require that those primary facades be treated consistently with an upgraded window material? And this will also, I think, lead to my thoughts about siding when that does come up. Us as a board, we as a board, do we think that we want to put a stake in the ground that's maybe a little more stringent when it comes to consistency and to those higher quality materials in an historic district.
If I can say something. So, with the kind of wording of in kind, I have it on our little handout, but I tried to avoid using it at all.
Yeah.
Because there are a lot of window companies that say they're replacing in kind when they're putting a window where a window was. And they don't understand that that's not what in kind means. And so the language is very subtle there.
Yep.
And one kind of sticking point that we have is a lot of times when products are coming to us, they're from the contractor. It's started with a permit, and so the contractor's offering the only option they have.
Right.
And which is in many cases a vinyl window. And so they push forward with it to not lose business and to get the project that their client has paid them for.
Yep.
And so it's kind of, on the short term, it's helping with this, and then hopefully in the long term, once we are able to get this information out there a little bit more, and to kind of have people more aware of the different options and changes like that, to be able to step up a little bit sterner about it. Just because right now, a lot of homeowners are going to the contractor first, and then contractor pulled a permit, didn't realize that it was landmarks, and kind of going from there. So that's part of a larger communication aspect. And read the siding thing, I think for my purposes, I was thinking trim and siding is together.
Yep.
In that respect.
Yep.
And then the hope is once we do have these approved, we can add language, like the roofing one has language saying, please refer to the solar panel policy on solar panels, and that would be connected in that way.
Yep.
And that would be, once we have more and add that little verbiage of, this is another thing to look at.
Yep. That's awesome. I appreciate the great work that you've done, and I'm assuming we'll continue to plow through.
I would like to share a few comments, Mr. Chair. I think, thank you to Jessica. This is something that I've been really excited about, is just having a lot more clarity and expectation on the front end, and all the collateral is going to be extremely helpful. One thought about being proactive, I wonder if we could even host a WebEx seminar for any contractors, so they know what the expectations are, because I think, you know, we should definitely talk with CDCs and council members and as many residents as we can, but I think ultimately the contractors will need to understand some of this as well. And I know some of them don't provide the products, but I think just the process and even the thinking behind it would be helpful, so that, you know, if there's a client in the landmarks district, they have to kind of begin with that a little bit more. I think the other thing is regarding the stringency. I worry for the homeowners who don't have as much income, and I think that's always going to be the big issue. Is you know, it is expensive to own a home in a historic district, and I think internally we've been thinking about ways to help support that with whether it's funds or grants, but that's where I would just like to share a concern in terms of how much we would expect on individual homeowners. I think for larger projects where there's a development, I think we can definitely hold them more accountable to that stringency. But yeah, I think we need a larger solution before we can provide that level of stringency for individuals.
And I could just respond real quick to that. Yeah, I certainly understand the cost considerations. You know, the higher quality windows can cost more. So what this policy does is kind of give staff a clear guidance on when we can administratively approve it. If someone is still saying, all I can afford is vinyl on the whole house, it's got to be vinyl on the front, or I can't do anything if my windows leak, and blah, blah, blah. That's, you know, that would still come to the commission. They could make that economic hardship argument, and you guys could, you know, determine whether you wanted to approve it or not. So it's you know, it's a policy, but it's guidance.
Yeah.
As opposed to like a stringent, you may not.
Right,
use vinyl.
and I think I appreciate the level of work that staff does, as well as the commission, on understanding case by case and working through that. But I think the administrative approvals is beautiful. It's a beautiful thing. So I agree with that. Thank you, Jen.
I guess, through the chair, to follow up, Director Huang. I'm wondering, thinking about, and this is just sort of bouncing ideas. I don't know if this is an appropriate forum to just sit back and forth, but I'm wondering if there's always feel like an appeals process for those hardship requirements. I think. I don't. I'm wondering if we as a board have our recommendations, understanding that the hardship requirement is a very real reality, but allowing for the consistency for outward visibility appearance that we are consistent in our recommendations, but for those conditions where it is a hardship, where they're able to look to be to refute that. I understand the hardship challenge, and if it went through that process to be sort of overturned, I wouldn't have an issue with a recommendation on a case by case basis due to hardship being overturned. But that said, again, I just one voice as one of many, and understand the hardship that does show. So
I think that on the hardship issue, I think I would like to prove that there is an actual hardship, because you can say you have one. And what is the hardship? We've seen some cases that come through that don't ring true, and then there's others that, okay, get it. That's true. So I think we need to have some mechanism to collect that data to prove. We don't need all your finances, but why is this a hardship? And making people go out, and it's not the contractor that should really be doing that. It should be the people doing that on their own to say, oh wait, I do have other options. Maybe I need to relook at this, and says, oh, I've been hearing a story from the contractor. Like Jessica said, they're trying to get a sale. So encouraging the applicants on their own to go out and do that, I think is a big thing. On proactivity, I think since about 2016 or 17, since I've been here, I've been sitting on the phone with contractors and showing them how to use our city planning GIS. How do you find if you are in a landmarks district? And that has been extremely useful. I think there's a couple of contractors that don't even take work in historic districts anymore, because they can identify, nope, we don't want to go through this process.
Or they don't have the product.
Yeah,
Right. That's
right.
Yes.
Right. We can't solve your problem.
Or they come with something that's appropriate on sides and rear and say, we know we can't touch the front, but we're doing this. So it has worked, and we've gotten a lot better. Plus we have other ones that, oh, I know I have to use a better quality material. So that education has been, and I think we just need to get more. So in a seminar, maybe it's just us, hey, do you know, as they're calling in and we're talking to them, we do a little bit more hand holding and saying, go to the website, here's how you do it.
Just to jump back on the hardship issue again, I think historically, the commission, we don't ask for financials. We don't really, I don't know if any of us are qualified to review financials and make a determination. So the way it's typically worked is, get other quotes and, show us how much more it's going to cost. And then you guys kind of determine whether that's a reasonable extra expense, whether the person makes, $20,000 a year, $200,000 a year, is an extra $40,000 in windows to make the front look, X, Y, or Z. Does that make sense? So we can look at. The city has financial analysts. There's some in community development, Department of Aging, and we try and make those referrals when it seems appropriate. But we can explore whether we could utilize their services when we have someone claiming economic hardship, talk to our folks here in City Hall and say, can you guys get the minimum financial information to find out is, where they are on the economic scale? Is it reasonable to ask them to spend more because they have more, that sort of thing? Or we can continue, the way we have done it and just sort of look at the difference in price between option A and option B and say, okay, that is a lot. So we understand that, you know, that would be a hardship for anyone.
I think a bigger determinant is not an individual's financial status. It's whether the neighborhood will support the additional capital expenditure.
Yeah.
Much more than an individual's finances. You have to look at practically at the neighborhood that.
Yeah, yeah. Just
But you
putting in
can't
these
put-
windows, put them underwater.
Yeah, you can't put $50,000 into a house that's
Yeah.
worth 5,000.
Yeah. And again, those are that case by case, those are the decisions that when it comes to you guys,
Absolutely.
we gotta evaluate
Yeah,
that too.
I wouldn't ever propose that we look at an individual finances.
Yeah.
I don't think that makes sense.
Yeah, I think that, I would agree with that.
And so I've been on the commission for 10 years. And I don't think we've ever advised practically a solution for repair of wood windows as opposed to replacements. I can't remember an instance, but except personally, I had a house in Menor that was built in 1927, and it had rope pulleys and counterweights that were shot, the windows rattled. So I found a resource in Middlefield, and I had my sash milled, and I had vinyl jams installed, and then I had double pane glass installed in the original sash and put them back in. So that you still had to paint the sash, but it operated like a modern window. So there's resources.
Yeah,
They're
yeah,
out there.
jam
They're hard to
liners.
find.
Yeah, jam
Yeah,
liners are
jam
a
liners.
great option.
Right, but we've never advised anyone to look at that.
Yeah, and that's something that's kind of shifted in, I guess, in my 20 years dealing with the commission. When I was at Ohio City, you know, staffing the design review committee, like everyone wanted to replace their windows, and the first step was always I'd go out, look at the windows, and kind of make a determination from a historic preservation perspective, like, do these windows warrant replacement? I think over the years, as you know, our building stock has gotten older, we've sort of gone to the assumption that, yeah, if someone's coming for replacement windows, their windows are probably in rough shape. And, you know, we don't have
self-lining windows.
Yeah, exactly. That's what a lot of it is. We don't have the partnerships with the CDCs anymore to go out and do those initial assessments and site visits. And staff-wise, I don't know that we have time to run out and actually look at them in person or get
If we're
better
developing
photographs.
this, we should include a more comprehensive section on
repair.
Yeah. And there's another option is Marvin makes jam liners and replacement sash. And one great advantage is it doesn't bring in from the jam the profile of the window.
Right.
So it looks much more original, and they're maintenance free. They're aluminum clad wood. And so those additional solutions, I think, should be included.
Yeah, I'm in total agreement with that. We don't really look at keeping the wood windows, especially some of these front elevations. There might be a way to do that, which would be more economical even than vinyl.
Right. But you really have to research to find the resources to be able to.
Right.
So we could be able to know that.
Yeah, I mean, we can look into that. Like you said, it's not something that we even discuss much anymore. The only project I can think of in recent memory is Sisters Haven, where, there was that idea of essentially keeping the windows on the front instead of replacing with vinyl. So staff went out, we called kind of a local window expert who's now on one of our design review committees and, did an analysis and assessment of whether what would it take to repair them and get them in working order, all that. So we can certainly put some more details about repair in there. It ultimately will still come down to case by case, I think. Is to have the expectation of what we're going to be asking for as far as level of detail. We need at least good photos of all the windows you want to replace. So.
That was going to be my next sort of question, is the process by which they need to submit for us to be able to effectively review. I think today's discussion is a really good example of we're gonna do all these windows, they all operate the same. But as we dig into things, and really look at the grainy photos, we can tell that we're not getting all of the story.
Right. And that's a frustration with contractors in general. I don't know how many hours a day Jessica spends just asking contractors for additional info and they say, I'll give it to you, or what do you mean? You know, it's, I don't want to say you can't fix stupid, but it's frustrating to keep asking for the same thing over and over and over. And, you know, I view it as someone's right. If they apply for a permit, then we have to take them through a process. So we get all the information we can, and then we bring them to design review. And sometimes the design review committee will say, we need more information. And the contractors will listen to them a lot better than they listen to city staff. I don't know if people don't respect government workers or what, but you know, like, and so sometimes the local committee will feel like it's a struggle to get information themselves. They'll ultimately, you know, approve it or deny it, whichever, move it on to you guys, and still there's that lack of information. So I think what happened today, as long of a discussion as it ended up being, you know, the applicant understood, hey, we need more information. And so maybe next time when he comes, he'll start off with that. Maybe he won't. But yeah, I think we can, I don't know how we can more clearly ask them. Yeah, you probably have more ideas on this than me, but.
Okay, so a few comments. So pre-cost of windows, part of like the discussion that we have sometimes is colors or different types. And a lot of times when contractors or homeowners are coming through, they're trying to get windows done as soon as possible. Obviously, they didn't understand there's a longer process. It's gonna take weeks of meeting and then next week another meeting. And there's a lead time for ordering windows and things like that. So a lot of times there's a lot of frustration on the part of homeowners and contractors on what they see as delays and what we see as a helpful process. And so there's, you know, variations in like base or standard vinyl versus like a higher quality vinyl versus a black color versus a clad wood and all those different options. So I mean, my thought is really getting the information out there and helping with educating, telling people because they don't know that there's options. All you have is one replacement window option. Now there's a few more, but
maybe that's the headline: window replacement. There are options.
Yeah, right. Including.
I know.
But yeah, and then you have a project that's not entirely clear what exactly they're doing or getting the proper information. Some companies are better than others at providing that. But there is that level of frustration that comes from the applicants on what they see as delays, which causes issues in meetings and things like that. And so that's just something to kind of keep in mind when we're talking about like preparing for replacement, because someone has already put in money for these replacement windows. They've already paid contractors charging for meetings after hours. And then to say like, well, could have just done this thing. So it's really trying to get out there ahead of it. It's really cool.
I guess is there an opportunity either for breaking down into the major components that we typically see come before us? Like, is there a template presentation for window replacement that goes through things like that, or good example presentations?
There's an organization that has one. Yes, so there are community resources that we can find that do have that information, that we could reach out to the partner with.
Yeah, I guess it's just in terms of, you know, when you respond back saying we need more information, and they say, oh, we have this information, you have a tool or a resource or a link to say, this is what you need to provide us. Otherwise, the committee won't review.
Yes. Yeah, we have a written version, a color version with clip art, and then also a template PDF version with big letters.
If you guys are interested, I can send you the Dropbox link to what Jessica sends every applicant who calls or pops in or email. It's, I mean, it's like, it's thorough and as, yeah, I guess, what did we say yesterday? Someone asked a random question and you said, oh, I'm always looking for additional ways to foolproof this stuff because people keep
Always
finding.
grateful for new ways to learn to add information.
Yes. Yeah.
So would it even
send that
would even be appropriate when you get an application that's clearly not enough information. I believe that's a judgment call the staff can make. Is that when you send these out and say, thank you for your application, but we really need this information so that we can efficiently and quickly respond to you. Maybe we already do that, but either people ignore that or never wanted to know, they just don't want to know because they think, oh, Window Nation's given me this price and I want to do it, and this is what I can afford, and boom. People would rather ask forgiveness, I guess.
The wide range of different cities that people work in and different architectural review boards that people work with and requirements that are made. And so there are some that don't ask for as much information as we do. We do ask for additional information just to help with the permitting process, going that going smoother. But yeah, it's the wide range of cities, but in my opinion, Cleveland is much bigger and here longer, so.
Yeah, and then another problem is just the market. I mean, having worked in Boston for 15 years, there were 3 to 4, if not more, local window manufacturers that made vinyl in different colors, white on the inside, dark on the outside, with exterior applied mullions, the mullions in the middle, and something on the inside. People were always competing for the market because they understood the historic quality of a house actually added value to that house. I mean, you had 2 houses next door to each other in East Boston, and if one had the historically correct windows and somebody had slapped shitty vinyl ones on, it was tens of thousands of dollars in difference because they said, oh, well, if I ever got to replace those, I know I got to do them right. But there's just a different ecosystem, I guess. I know we don't have no power to create that, obviously, but it just has to do with the scale of the market. Everything was historic. So it's a very different world. But are we going to look at a vinyl window that might be acceptable? I mean, it made a lot of issues go away.
That's an interesting segue to.
Yeah. Unless people want to talk more. I don't want to shortcut this.
Yeah, we can.
I don't know. I have a lot of feelings about people that are valid using lead as an excuse, and whether or not that's always an easy out. I think that personally, I think we just in general society need more workshops on everybody learning how to do proper maintenance on your house. Just everybody should be able to, do small things. So I think we should be able to keep a lot more of the wood windows, but people don't want to invest the time and energy to do that. So I don't know if that's on us to solve that, but I have a lot of feelings. But then, as a side note, I just had an air conditioning unit put in, and the contractor called up the inspector on while he was talking to me at my house, and was able to talk to the city inspector that was going to approve it and say, they want to put it here. Are you okay with that? And he said on the spot, yeah, just send me, took some photos. Can they do that with windows? We followed up with the right paperwork after, but there was conversation with the inspector immediately. And is there inspectors that follow through on windows for Cleveland as well? Or do they know that, this is a historic district and there needs to be more thought put into the windows for these areas? I'm not trying to point fingers at anybody. These are all things.
I think we should just.
I have a lot of feelings.
I have feelings about that. But there's greater issues.
Yes.
And I don't think this would be the time to go into that, because I can tell you I could go up for about an hour.
Just an hour.
I could.
You're not. I thought it was interesting that the problem was directed to somebody and we got an appropriate answer quickly, and it was able to be worked out in the right ways. I don't know how efficiently that happens throughout.
my experience with inspectors. Yes. All right, Dan, what's next?
Well, are you, I guess we did have this as a votable agenda item, so are you guys, do you want to vote on it, do you want to table it?
Well, I think we've offered some suggestions that might enhance the policy, so let's.
We can bring it back
Continue
if there's
that.
any
Yeah.
additions later.
Yeah, okay. That works for me.
Yeah, I mean, one last thought, I guess, would be, is it appropriate to have even a brief process piece that's embedded in this, in all of these guidelines?
That's what you're talking about.
I
Already
think that's
exists.
really, yeah, they do exist, so, I think that's just how we make sure that people, we read them, I don't know.
Yeah, and that's once, you know, we have functioning live website that, you know, these are PDFs. You can click on that link when it talks about process and go to the whole, here's the whole process, here's what you need, here's what your presentation, you know, like all of the policies will have that.
So in retrospect, do you think that this project that we tabled should have been on the agenda?
As far as the amount
Your-
of
your-
information and.
Yeah.
I mean, when the local saw it, they essentially had the same issues. I guess you were there at the meeting. They, you know, they wanted to see the windows that were a different configuration, maintain their configuration. And what the contractor basically, I think he was confused by casements. He was thinking casements had to crank out and they weren't just like, you know, any window that swings
Well, I
that way.
probably added to that confusion.
The
Because
conversation had at the local committee was just as productive as today's conversation. So the determination to bump it to a higher body was thoughtful one, just based on productivity.
Yeah, but even when it gets here from local, you could still say we don't have enough information. Take it back. You're not obligated to put it on the agenda.
Yeah, I don't, I guess once it gets through local, we do try and get them scheduled for the next available meeting and we'll ask for additional information, but I'm trying to remember if we've ever said, sorry, I know local approved this, but we need more before you can keep moving forward. Carol, can you think of a time when that's come up?
Thought that, like, they want to be on. Us just get here, sorry, you don't have enough. On that, we have enough, but I think we have to consider this commission or even plan. Beyond the planning commission. I think if they're divided, it has to go, because they have an application. Is it a complete, I think we still need to define what is a complete application, and then maybe we have that as a policy, but that's gotta be on both sides.
Yeah.
And once that complete application criteria is defined, we say, nope, missing this, missing this.
Right.
You give that to us, then you'll be on it.
Yeah, the counter arguments could be very frustrating for the applicant to think that, you know,
Yeah,
they're ready to
moving
go
along.
and they're going through the process and all of a sudden they hit a roadblock here. It might be better to interrupt the process earlier and let them know they need to provide more information.
And we have our check sheets, and we say, here's all in for like a window project or a fence, or whatever it is. We say, here are the items you need, make sure you have them. And no matter how many times we say, and this is not new, this is going on forever. They just won't put in certain information. So at what point do we say, okay, we want this to move, we have an aging permit, we need this to get through. Okay, let's get it to you guys. Get action on it, one way or another, even if it's a denial.
Yeah.
You know what?
There's not enough here.
Not enough here, you're denied, come back with a new presentation.
Yeah, because the way our ordinance reads, you know, we have 45 days to take action on every permit application. So, you know, that's why every complete permit application, but then
Complete,
it
yes.
doesn't really define complete. So, yeah, I think a policy that really specified what complete is. I mean, we know what a complete application is, and that's the information we ask for, but if someone doesn't get us all of it, yeah, there is that idea that, you know, they have a right to proceed. You know what I mean? It's they've made an application, we need to take them through with what they have. So it's, I don't know, it's a balancing act.
I guess, you know, can we as a body, even before they go into presentation, say, we feel that, you know, the commission doesn't feel like there's enough information to review this today.
That might be a long part question.
Okay.
Yeah.
But also, with the 45 days.
Yeah.
Is that an action by this board or is that an action by staff? Because we are acting on your behalf to move things. So if we send an email to an applicant, clock should stop at 45 days until they respond. Projects move at the speed of the applicant.
Yeah.
That's.
Yeah. And I mean, another, I guess, another idea is, if when we send out the agenda with all the information, if you guys look in the Dropbox and see like, oh, this is not nearly enough for us to make a decision on, let us know ahead of time. And then we can have the opportunity to talk to the applicant and say, you're not likely to, they're going to tell you need more info. So you're not going to get an approval next week. It might be too late to submit additional information and stay on that agenda, but at least then they don't waste their time showing up for a meeting, paying a contractor to show up for a meeting just to be kind of sent away saying you need more info when, you've probably been telling them they need more info for a while, but, to actually hear it from the commission says they won't even look at this until you have X, Y, Z.
As part of our process. I mean, our internal process. You typically send the information a week ahead of time. I mean, is there something that would there be maybe a deadline for us as we're reviewing to say, by Monday at noon?
I think
if you have
Tuesday
any
at
questions,
noon.
Tuesday at noon.
Like public comments.
Yeah. Okay.
The deadline not make it
Okay.
that same time.
Yeah, I mean, just to be able to send you or whomever just our note saying, because I probably would have responded to the window one saying, there's like
What is
there's 5 grainy photos.
Yeah.
I don't have enough information to be able to have a productive discussion.
And I think that Tuesday noon deadline would work too. That way we can kind of confirm, like, at that point, all right, these people are going to drop off. This is moving forward. We can, submit a revised agenda, essentially by 1 o'clock on noon if there are changes, or 1 o'clock Tuesday if there are changes. Otherwise, just assume it's staying the same kind of thing.
So a motion can be made at any time after the presentation is complete, and so if there is a presentation, go through, sign, review, stack for it, and someone just like, there's not, a motion to table could be made at that time. So it doesn't have to wait quickly.
Yeah, you don't have to discuss it each time.
So under sort of operational question, so if we decide that we'll provide you sort of feedback by you said Tuesday at noon. If we have any questions, are we able to submit those and or like what's like again? I think going back to the repair versus replacement, can we ask, like, as part of that ask, has the applicant looked into repair of these windows or anything like that? This is again just
I think that gets some deep into the weeds. I think
Yeah.
if you just keep it at procedure and
Yep.
information rather than asking all these questions,
Yep.
because that's what this.
Right, that's what this is.
for.
Right.
And I think you could start getting into email
Mhm.
type of reviews of
Review,
process.
sunshine laws.
Which is
Yeah, so we have to keep it limited to
Yep.
what information is
Gotcha.
available
Okay.
as opposed to asking for,
Yep.
I guess, specific questions.
Appreciate that.
Agree. And that kind of heading that off, and we can all participate in that too.
Yeah.
I think that really helped a lot. It empowers staff to be able to say, hey, commission wants to
Not
see
us,
more information. Yeah, blame us. Because that's our job. But rather than doing it with that frustration about, hey, I came all the way here and all that, to avoid that frustration without getting too much burden on staff. That the request for more information, the earlier the better, to kind of make sure that when we do meet, we can make a real decision. And that's really good.
Sorry, just one more, just clarifying question. If we provide feedback saying we don't have enough information to be able to review, is there still time for an applicant to be able to provide you with that information prior, or does that mean that would kick them? If they say, I don't care, I'm still gonna present.
I think we are getting into the weeds here.
I
One
know.
commission member can't decide.
No.
Exactly.
But that's a good question. Yeah, like what if one of you says, I don't think there's enough info here, but nobody else says anything? Does that mean that?
I would say, if there's a quorum.
It'll be a case by case basis.
Yeah, I think it'll be case by case.
And if we find it's like, we know that there's not
Yes.
Yeah, makes it one or two.
Yeah.
I think that's enough for us to trigger, it's
Right.
at least 2 people.
Yeah.
I think that's one person may just be
I
missing.
think
Yeah,
the chair would have to concur.
Yeah, I think probably, getting the chair
Right.
or vice chair, if that's,
Mhm.
I like it.
I would always defer to the chair.
So what's the communication? for
So
this?
when we send out the agendas on,
Reply all.
Friday, reply all and, you could say, I don't think there's enough information on agenda item 5. And you could even specify if you want, like, we need additional photographs of each window, blah, 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 tell us what you want that would make it more helpful. And then, if someone else could say, yep, I agree, or I think it's fine, or that's in there, it's
You
just.
have a discussion with Julie.
Yeah, exactly.
Decide whether it's.
Decide by noon Tuesday, yep.
Okay.
Like it.
Awesome.
So I guess we would need a motion to adopt these at this point.
Are we
I
taking?
think we're at table.
Yeah, because I would like more time to.
Do we want to officially table it, or is it, since it's sort of in-house? Yeah, I think we just.
It's just a presentation.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
All right, so we'll move on to meeting minutes.
Yes.
Any discussion on the meeting minutes? So accept the motion to approve the minutes as written.
I'll make a motion to approve the meeting
Need a
minutes from May
second?
9th.
I will second.
2024.
Second,
All right.
discussion, no discussion, please call.
All right. Mr. Dewey.
Yes. I'm the first time.
Mr. Lecter, yeah, right? We're losing people up here.
Yes.
Mr. Sandberg.
Yes.
Mr. Trusty.
Yes.
Dr. Williams
Yes.
and Mr. Strickland.
Yes.
The motion passes unanimously.
Okay. Any other administrative reports?
Fortunately, got some real long ones, but no, just heads up next week. It's one of those nice weeks that we don't have another meeting until June 13th. So it's kind of a week off from design review, a week off from commission meetings. And we don't have any site visits either, but the following week will be a busy one. We have the June 3rd at 3:00, the East 97th Street demolition. That's a city demo. So we're gonna get out and look at that. If you can join us, great. Then the following day on June 4th at 2:30, we're meeting at the AGA, recently landmark building, to look at a new type of vinyl window that's supposedly better quality, more historically sensitive. So we wanted to see it in person. So they're going to install one and we can see how it looks. We're also inviting, folks from some of the other local landmarks commissions and storefront innovation program to kind of, share the thinking that if this technology is shifting, maybe we should all be on board. And then finally, on June 6th at 5:30, they're dedicating a portion of West Clinton as Judge Ray Pianka Avenue. So if any of you, I don't know if everyone knows or knew Ray, but wonderful public servant, truly dedicated, councilman and then housing court judge. I think he was very instrumental in starting the housing court, but a great friend to the Landmarks Commission over the years. So if any of you can make it out to there, it would be appreciated.
He lived on the street.
Yeah, I believe it was just, right there, basically. Yeah, I think he grew up there too. Yeah, he's definitely a neighborhood guy.
Yep.
But that is all I have.
Okay, very good. With that, we'll adjourn our meeting and see everyone on June 13th. Have a great holiday.
Thank you. You too.